Chapter 2466. This time, Yiqing Luo didn't attempt to use her mental power to explore the totem on the wall. That pair of jade green eyes. Now that she recalled it, she felt a chill running down her spine. After walking for about a cup of tea's time, in the quiet village, a calm and indifferent voice was heard. "Who are you?" "Third Elder." Third Elder Miao replied. A ray of light struck, instantly lighting up the pitch-black surroundings. Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes as she looked over. She saw a door in front of her opened. There were 2 guards standing at the door. As compared to the guards she saw outside the Miao village, their abilities were obviously stronger. Third Elder Miao took a step forward. Yiqing Luo immediately followed. The 2 of them, one in front and one behind, stepped into that door. With a bam, the door was shut. Yiqing Luo's heart tightened slightly as she glanced at Third Elder Miao's back view with an inexplicable ominous premonition. But at the next moment, she heard Third Elder Miao's impatient voice. "The 2 old fellows from the Bu village are there." Yiqing Luo's thoughts were interrupted. She looked towards the direction which Third Elder Miao was pointing at. Here, it was a place similar to a prison cell. There were prison cells all around. Each prison cell was separated by iron bars. And at the end of the prison cell, on 2 wooden stakes, hung Elder T and Grandma Bu. They were covered in blood as they hung on the wooden stakes, as though they had fainted. Yiqing Luo's brows creased. She didn't lose her rationality and disregard everything. Instead, she first released her perception to ascertain that there was no one else's presence in this underground prison. Then she quickly walked past Third Elder Miao and dashed towards Elder T and Grandma Bu. The 4 limbs of the Bu family's 2 elders were tied with iron chains. Their faces were devoid of any color. Their hair was messy and they looked extremely disheveled. Seeing Elder T in front of her, Yiqing Luo recalled a few days ago, when they were in the Bu village, Elder T was still so gentle, smiling at her benevolently. But now, it had become like this. She clenched her fists and quickly took out 2 healing and replenishing elixirs from the profound phoenix ring. She approached the wooden stake and carefully fed it to the 2 elders. The medicinal pills which Yiqing Luo refined naturally had an extremely fast effect. After a while, the 2 Bu family elders gradually woke up and opened their eyes. Elder T was still in a trance. It took him a while to see the person in front of him clearly. His eyes widened in astonishment, and his voice was hoarse and harsh. "You? How could you? Young lady." Granny Bu had already woken up by now, and when she saw Yiqing Luo's face, she went into a blank. As soon as they moved, the chains on his body made a clanking sound. They then remembered that they were tied up in the dungeon by the Miao people. "Little girl, what are you doing here?" Elder T's face turned pale. "This is the Miao tribe, little girl. I'll get you out of here." Yiqing Luo stretched out her hand and her fingertips knocked on the metal chains. "Where else are you injured? Can you still walk?" "Little girl, do you know what you are doing? This is the Miao tribe. How could you come here? The Miao tribe will not let you off." When Elder T heard that, his eyes turned red as he choked with sobs. "What ability do I have to trouble little girl to save me time and time again? Quickly leave, before the Miao tribe people discover you. Quickly leave this place." Chapter 2467. Elder T's tears streamed down his face. Grandma Bu also cried out, "Young lady, hurry and leave. This is our own choice. We were too rash, we can't harm you." As she spoke, she choked with sobs. Her body was weak due to the torture she had suffered earlier. That iron chain was hanging Grandma Bu's hands tightly. She was in so much pain that her entire face was wrinkled, but she was afraid that Yiqing Luo would be worried, so she didn't make a sound. "Young lady, you are still young, don't bury your future here. Don't lose your life because of us 2 old fellows. E is a good lady. She won't blame you. Grandma Bu, don't talk anymore, conserve your energy." Yiqing Luo's lips curled up slightly, comforting her. She walked to Grandma Bu's side and used one hand to support her, lending strength to Grandma Bu to ease the pain from the iron chain. "Young lady." Elder T choked with sobs as he tried to persuade. "Let me untie the iron chain for you first." Yiqing Luo interrupted Elder T's voice. She had just tested the hardness of the iron chain. It was just an ordinary iron chain. It was rather easy to break these iron chains. Close your eyes, don't be afraid. Yiqing Luo smiled gently. Her voice exuded a reassuring and convincing power. The two Bu elders wanted to say something, but after meeting Yiqing Luo's resolute gaze, they still chose to close their eyes. Back in the Bu family village, Elder T knew that once this young lady decided on something, no one could change her mind. If they didn't want to be a burden to her, then they could only try their best to cooperate with her, and try their best not to be a burden to her. Yiqing Luo took a few steps back. Her eyes gradually turned sharp. Her fingers moved. A fiery red feather fan appeared in her palm. Profound energy was injected into the fan, and at this moment, a bewitching red glow appeared, burning brightly. Kacha. A few crisp sounds were heard as the iron chains were cut off and fell onto the ground. The two Bu elders' bodies immediately sank. Yiqing Luo supported them with each hand, letting them lean against the wooden pillar, sitting down to rest. After rescuing the two Bu elders from the iron chain, Yiqing Luo's gaze turned towards the surroundings, surveying the surroundings. I'll bring you out of the Miao tribe first. We'll talk about the rest after we get out. As soon as she finished speaking, his gaze was fixed on a certain spot. His expression changed drastically. Third Elder Miao, how dare you scheme against me? Yiqing Luo's expression congealed as a pair of sharp charming eyes, like a sharp icicle, pierced directly towards Third Elder Miao. As she spat out a sentence while clenching her teeth, her reaction could be considered very fast. The moment he sensed that something was wrong, he immediately bent down and hugged the two Bu family's elders. Then with a single step, he flew towards Third Elder Miao. However, just at the moment when Yiqing Luo leapt up, a loud bang shook the entire Hmong stockade village 3 times. Dong! Then a huge iron cage came crashing down. If Yiqing Luo was alone, escaping from this iron cage was definitely not a problem. But in Yiqing Luo's hands, there were 2 old men who were obviously exhausted. The moment the iron cage came crashing down, Yiqing Luo knew that her discovery was too late. She decisively gave up on the idea of escaping with the Bu family's 2 elders. Just at the moment when the iron cage came crashing down on their heads, she had already brought the 2 Bu elders back to the side of the wooden pillar. Chapter 2468. The iron cage that flickered with a cold light trapped the 3 of them inside. Young lady. The 2 Bu family elders were so shocked by the sudden turn of events that they couldn't recover from their shock. They stared blankly at the iron cage and stammered, "This? What is going on? Why is there an iron cage?" Grandma Bu's eyes widened in astonishment. She looked at the iron cage. Then she looked at Yiqing Luo's gloomy expression. Tears welled up in her eyes. "Young lady, we've let you down. We've caused you to be trapped in the Miao tribe." "It's all right." Yiqing Luo turned back to look at the 2 Bu elders and the expression on her face became gentler. "Just treat it as me asking you to rest more. After you've rested enough and recovered your energy, we'll leave." Ha 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 ha. A sudden ear-piercing laughter was heard from outside the iron cage. Third Elder Miao placed both his hands behind his back, totally different from the yes man in front of Yiqing Luo earlier. "Trapped in the Miao stockade cave, and you still want to leave? Ah! Seeing that you're so ignorant, this elder shall be merciful and tell you. The Miao stockade cave is not a place where you outsiders can come and go as you please." Third Elder Miao walked slowly to the iron cage with a complacent smile on his face. When the 2 Bu elders heard that, their bodies trembled violently as their faces were filled with guilt. Yiqing Luo didn't even raise her head as she half squatted in front of the 2 Bu elders and took their pulse while sneering. "Third Elder Miao, don't be too confident. If I want to leave, can you stop me?" Third Elder Miao couldn't help but burst out laughing. "Why don't you leave for this elder to see? Ha ha. As long as I hand you over to the clan leader, this elder will definitely be able to get rid of the mess in the Bu family village and obtain a respectable status." As though he was thinking of his future, Third Elder Miao's laughter became increasingly carefree and complacent. Yiqing Luo turned a deaf ear to it. There wasn't a single trace of panic on her face. Only between his brows, There was a hint of coldness. After confirming that the two Bu elders had not suffered any serious injuries, Yiqing Luo heaved a sigh of relief and fed both of them another elemental energy pill as she comforted them warmly. Grandpa Bu, rest here and recover your energy. In a while, I'll bring you out. Young lady. Granny Bu held Yiqing Luo's hand tightly. Yiqing Luo smiled sweetly, don't worry. After she finished speaking, she slowly stood up and faced Third Elder Miao. In that instant, the expression on her face became extremely domineering. From head to toe, he released an aura that looked down on everything. Third Elder Miao's maniacal laughter was abruptly stopped by Yiqing Luo's imposing manner. Yiqing Luo's eyes were calm as she fixed her gaze on him. Her pink lips curled upwards as she spoke in a chilly voice. Third Elder Miao's current fantasy, whether he has the life to fulfill it or not, is still a question. Third Elder Miao's face turned pale, but his expression quickly returned to normal. He coldly snorted in a rather pleased manner. You still want to use the matter of me being poisoned to deceive me? Do you really think this elder is a fool? Let you tease me again and again? Towards Yiqing Luo, Third Elder Miao was filled with disgust and hatred from the bottom of his heart. It was Yiqing Luo who made him lose his face in front of his subordinates. It was Yiqing Luo who teased him time and time again, trampling on his pride. That cheap hussy who was full of lies. He didn't believe that there was any poison in his body or such nonsense. Chapter 2469. Yiqing Luo laughed lowly. She raised her eyes curved, narrow and charming. Whether I am deceiving you or not, you know it in your heart. Pausing for a moment, Yiqing Luo raised her hand and pressed the glower flame fan against her pink lips as she continued. Actually, from the start, I really felt that you were rather silly, but now you're not that silly. At least, he knew how to take advantage of her confidence and scheme against her. He had been tricked. Yiqing Luo wasn't particularly angry. She had indeed underestimated Third Elder Miao, believing that Third Elder Miao cherished his life. But he had overlooked it. The third elder of the Miao clan had been fooled by her in the Bu family village. He no longer believed her. Third Elder Miao's face turned slightly pale. He clenched his fists tightly and stared sharply at the young girl in the cage who was smiling calmly. In his heart, there was a faint feeling of unease. Yi Luo was too calm, especially when those eyes, which seemed to be able to see through the soul, looked at him with a faint smile. He felt a sharp pain in his stomach. Every night, the feeling of sweating, sometimes cold, sometimes hot, seemed to attack his heart. Yi Luo had fed him that day in the Bu family village. Was it really poison? No, impossible. The Miao tribe's doctor has already checked on me. There is no poison in my body. This elder is not poisoned. Not knowing if it was to convince himself or to convince Yiqing Luo, Third Elder Miao practically roared out this sentence. That's right. He wasn't poisoned. Dr. Miao did not find any toxins in his body. It must be this bitch who wanted to trick him and make him fall for it. Poochie. An unsuppressible chuckle escaped from Yiqing Luo's mouth. She smiled and said, Then, did Miaoyi find any clues about the poison in Miss Miao's body? Third Elder Miao opened his eyes wide. His countenance turned pale as he staggered several steps back. Yiqing Luo continued to smile. Then during that crazy period of time, was there any doctor who found any clues? It seems like even Miss Miao couldn't detect the poison in Little Prince's body with her goo worm. Third Elder Miao's body suddenly swayed. His legs began to wobble. His breathing also became a little hurried. He staggered backward. He muttered softly, Impossible. Impossible. You're just scaring me. You're definitely playing with me. However, even if he brainwashed himself repeatedly, the expression on Third Elder Miao's face grew more and more frightened and panicked. Yi Luo. Yi Luo. He suddenly cried out Yiqing Luo's name in panic and helplessness, as his eyes stared straight at Yiqing Luo crazily. This elder will let you out now. You give this elder the antidote. Yiqing Luo tilted her head as she fanned herself with a languid look. But I don't feel like going out now. Then she walked over to the Bu family's two elders and sat down. The environment here is not bad. I will stay here for a while. Yi Luo. Third Elder Miao's face turned pale. He was flustered and anxious. The Meow Stockade Village's cave is the most taboo place in the Meow tribe. I'll let you out now and send you away from the Meow tribe. Give me the antidote. Yiqing Luo couldn't help but laugh out. Third Elder Meow really cherished his life. But did he really think that after this iron cage was put down, she could still leave easily? The Meow tribe's people were not fools. She already had no chance to leave quietly. Chapter 2470. Third Elder, I heard that you've already caught the person who trespassed into Meow tribe? A deep voice was heard coming from the entrance of the dungeon. Immediately following that, a middle-aged man walked over. That man's imposing manner was unleashed, carrying a trace of sharpness. When that man walked nearer to Third Elder Meow, Third Elder Meow's face turned as white as a piece of white paper. His entire body started to tremble violently. He plopped onto the ground as he stammered, "Patriarch, Patriarch." The person who came was the Meow tribe's patriarch, Miao Yixiong. Miao Yixiong was all smiles. Third Elder need not be so courteous. Third Elder Meow stood up apprehensively. He paid attention to Miao Yixiong's expression as he tried his best to calm his emotions. Looking at the patriarch's expression, he probably hadn't heard what he said about releasing Yi Luo. He couldn't afford to be flustered. Today, the patriarch had already seen Yi Luo locked up in the Meow tribe's dungeon. He had no other choice. No matter if he was poisoned by Yiqing Luo, he had to stand on the Meow tribe's side. Patriarch, this is the person who trespassed into Meow tribe, trying to save the two old fellows in the Bu family village. After he had made up his mind, Third Elder Meow decisively pointed at Yiqing Luo. Miao Yixiong narrowed his eyes. He placed his hands behind his back as he walked nearer to the iron cage. When his gaze met the young lady's face, his expression suddenly congealed. Yi Luo? Yiqing Luo lazily raised her eyelids as she squinted at Miao Yixiong, smiling as she spoke. Meow tribe leader, long time no see. Not long. Not long. These words were said with clenched teeth, as though he was suppressing his anger. Third Elder Meow saw that the atmosphere between the two of them was not right, and realized that there was a grudge between the patriarch and Yi Luo? And it wasn't a small grudge? Third Elder Meow stood on the patriarch's side even more firmly. Patriarch, the last time I lost in the Bu family village, it was because she blocked and protected the village. This time, she ran over to the Meow tribe to save these two people. This person must have a close relationship with the Bu family village, and there's a possibility that Trader's disappearance is related to her. No, we don't know anything about Traders. This is only the second time we've met this young lady. She was just being kind. She just couldn't bear to see us two old people get hurt. Let her go. Let her go. Granny Bu struggled to stand up. Her wrinkled face was filled with tears. I've kowtowed to you. I'll answer whatever you want to ask. Let this little girl go. Then Granny Bu's tottering body propped itself up, wanting to kneel. Yiqing Luo raised her hand and stopped her. He won't dare to do anything to us. You stay here and rest well. Heh, Miao Yixiong sneered, his eyes filled with disdain. Young lady, you sure talk big. Of course. Yiqing Luo gently patted Grandma Bu's back, comforting her as she gave a faint smile. Your daughter's life is now in my hands. If you don't want your daughter to live on, then just go ahead and do it. Grandma Bu's expression changed. You. Miao Yixiong was so angry that his eyes were filled with rage. Yi Luo, what did you do to Rongrong? How could he not want Miao Rongrong to live? Miao Rongrong was his only hope now. She was the only candidate to be the Miao tribe's sacred maiden. But ever since Miao Rongrong escaped from the Battle King's residence, Miao Rongrong's body was getting weaker and weaker, even if it was those antidotes that Miao Rongrong brought back. Chapter 2471. Yiqing Luo didn't even lift her eyelids. Speaking of eldest young Miss Meow. Meow Patriarch, the bottle of medicinal pills that eldest young Miss Meow snatched from me was something that I spent an entire month to refine, spending a huge amount of money to gather all the medicinal herbs. She paused as her lips curled into a mocking smile. I should settle this score with the Meow Patriarch. You poisoned Rongrong and still dare to ask me to settle this score for you? Miao Yixiong laughed in anger. Young lady, this is the Miao tribe and you're so arrogant in my territory. Aren't you afraid that you won't be able to leave this place alive? Yiqing Luo finally raised her head. Her long and narrow eyes rose slightly as she shrugged her shoulders indifferently. It doesn't matter if I can leave the Miao tribe alive, but whether eldest Miss Miao can stay alive. Yi Luo. Miao Yixiong's imposing manner exploded, fierce and sharp. Refusing a toast only to drink a forfeit. His 5 fingers moved. A burst of dense, profound energy burst forth from his palm. Yiqing Luo felt the ground shaking. Behind her, the 2 Bu elders' panicked cries could be heard. Yiqing Luo turned around and saw the wooden stake that the 2 Bu elders were sitting on suddenly rose up slowly. Sharp arrows flew out from all directions of the iron cage, heading straight for the 2 old men on the wooden stakes. Yiqing Luo's eyes turned cold. Her feet tapped lightly and her body leaped up agilely. The glower flame fan in her hand suddenly opened up and slashed out a burst of dense profound qi. Bam! The whirlwind created by the xian qi knocked away all the sharp arrows. Yiqing Luo's other hand immediately pulled the 2 Bu elders down from the wooden stake. Immediately, the 3 of them landed steadily on the ground. Looking at the 2 old men who were still in a state of shock, Yiqing Luo's face revealed a trace of anger. Her eyes were cold as her lips curled into a cold arc. Miao Patriarch. You will pay the price for what you did earlier. Miao Yixiong totally disregarded Yiqing Luo's words. His gaze was sinister and malicious. Just based on the fact that you're trapped in my iron cage, with 2 burdens, you want me to pay the price? Really? Yiqing Luo's lips curled into a devilish smile. At the same time, he spat out these 2 words lightly. A gush of horrifying power encircled Yiqing Luo's surroundings, enveloping that young lady dressed in a long red dress, who was like a raging flame, tightly. The entire dungeon shook violently, causing the earth to quake and the mountains to sway. He could vaguely hear the sound of something falling to the ground. The smile on Miao Yixiong's face gradually froze. Yiqing Luo let go of the 2 Bu elders and lowered her voice. Stand further away, we will be able to leave soon. Yiqing Luo intentionally set up a simple enchantment around the 2 Bu family elders. This was formed from her spiritual power. Naturally, the profound energy she released would not have any effect on the barrier. What do you want to do? Miao Yixiong sensed that something was wrong. This power was so strong that it made him feel somewhat oppressed. Of course it's to make you pay the price. Yiqing Luo's red lips were alluring as she spat out one sentence at a time. His voice fell. Yiqing Luo leaped up. Dense dark force surged rapidly. Suddenly, like an exploding whirlpool, it landed on top of the iron cage. Bam! Bam bam bam. A series of collisions and the sound of things falling to the ground were heard. That iron cage which had trapped Yiqing Luo and the other 2 inside. Under Yiqing Luo's profound qi attack, it collapsed with a loud bang. Miao Yixiong was jolted back a few steps. Chapter 2472. The ground was filled with dust and the iron bars were sent flying. Yiqing Luo lightly clapped her hands as her long and narrow eyes rose into a faint but cold arc. Now Miao clan leader, how else do you think you can trap me? Miao Yixiong's malicious eyes stared fiercely at Yiqing Luo. His hands clenched into fists as his profound qi revolved around his body. Yiqing Luo's action of shattering the iron cage. It really gave him a huge shock. Although he knew in his heart that Yiqing Luo's ability was very strong. But he had never thought that Yiqing Luo's ability was actually above his. This young lady, was she really like what she looked like on the surface, just a 15-year-old young lady? What was her identity? Why did she go against the Miao clan time and time again? Miao Yixiong's gaze turned increasingly cold. In my Miao clan's territory, you think I can't trap you? He laughed coldly a few times. His sinister gaze slowly fell onto the 2 Bu elders behind Yiqing Luo. His smile became even colder. The Miao clan is not a place where you can come and go as you wish. Moreover, with those 2 burdens around, you can forget about leaving the Miao clan. The 2 Bu elders shivered. Then, bring it on, we can try. See if I have the ability to bring Grandpa Boo and Grandma Boo away from the Miao clan. Towards Miao Yixiong's threat, Yi Qingluo was totally unmoved as she met Miao Yixiong's gaze calmly. As her lips twitched in ridicule, Miao Yixiong's gaze turned colder. You won't give up until all hope is gone. I'd like to see how arrogant you can be. His words had just ended when Miao Yixiong took a few steps back. Then he called out loudly, Lord Yu, I'll have to trouble you. Lord Yu? Yi Qingluo's eyes flashed. In her mind, a figure suddenly flashed past. The next moment, she saw a tall man appearing in the dungeon. That man overlapped with the figure which flashed past Yi Qingluo's mind. Yi Qingluo's pupils suddenly contracted as shock flashed past her eyes. Yu Ji. The man in front of her wasn't he. Lan Ling Nua's personal guard? She had once crossed hands with him at the Peach Blossom restaurant, and she was still not his match. That man called Yu Ji? Why would he appear in the Miao tribe? Ah, you didn't expect this, did you? Miao Yixiong looked at Yi Qingluo's astonished expression and burst into laughter. Young lady, do you really think that your ability is so strong that no one in the world can match you? Arrogance and confidence depend on the situation and the person. Miao Yixiong's laughter was filled with smugness and coldness. He felt a sense of exhilaration. He was the leader of the Miao tribe, but in the hands of a 15-year-old girl, he had repeatedly suffered losses. Now he could finally suppress this little girl's arrogance. He would find Yu Ji, invite Yu Ji to the Miao tribe. It was to deal with Yi Qingluo. He learned from Miao Rongrong. The bodyguard brought by the East Wave County Lord, Lan Ling Nua, was able to defeat Yi Luo easily. Therefore he borrowed Yu Ji from Lan Ling Nua. In the process of borrowing people from Lan Ling Nua, Miao Yixiong also noticed some clues. Although on the surface, Yu Ji's identity was said to be Lan Ling Nua's personal guard. But in fact, every time Lan Ling Nua spoke, she had to look at Yu Ji's expression. Especially when it concerned Yu Ji, Lan Ling Nua appeared to be even more careful. Chapter 2473. Of course, who exactly was Yu Ji? Miao Yixiong did not mind. He only cared about whether Yu Ji could get the antidote out of Yi Luo. Nothing else mattered to him. However, there was one thing that puzzled Miao Yixiong. When he sincerely invited Yu Ji to come to the Miao tribe to help him solve his biggest problem, Yu Ji didn't even finish his words before directly rejecting him. But after that, when he and Lan Ling Nua talked and mentioned the name Yi Luo, Yu Ji actually changed his attitude and agreed to it immediately. Then she followed him to the Miao tribe. Miao Yixiong had originally planned to bring Yu Ji to Yi Luo. If Yi Luo didn't listen to her, then let Yu Ji force Yi Luo to hand over the antidote. Who would have thought that Yi Luo would come to the Miao tribe alone for the sake of the two elders of the Bu family village? Coincidentally, Yu Ji was in the Miao tribe. This time, it could be said that Yi Luo had fallen into the tiger's den. Miao Yixiong recalled the scene of Yi Luo being tortured by Yu Ji. The scene of Yi Luo handing over the antidote and begging for mercy. The smile on Miao Yixiong's face grew even more smug. Little girl, you're not Lord Nethery's match. You'd better surrender obediently. Standing behind Yu Ji, Miao Yixiong was full of confidence. Actually, I'm not an unreasonable person. As long as you give me the antidote obediently and help Rongrong vent her anger, I'll naturally let you leave the Miao tribe. Yi Qingluo rolled her eyes with a look of disdain. Such a person, with such a face, was actually the patriarch of the Miaogu clan? Is there no one left in the Miao tribe? Letting such a brainless person become the clan leader? Aren't you afraid that the 100 years of prestige of the Miaogu clan will be destroyed? He was a dignified clan leader, a 45 to 54-year-old middle-aged man. He hid behind a young man. Furthermore, he was acting so arrogantly, using the young man as a stepping stone to criticize others. Why did Yi Qingluo feel that this clan leader was so childish that it made one laugh? Seeing that Yi Qingluo wasn't like what he had imagined, begging bitterly, instead she looked at him and smiled. Miao Yixiong's expression turned cold, and his eyes instantly became sharp. Just as Miao Yixiong was about to continue speaking, the young girl smiled sweetly, her eyes sparkling with a dreamy light. A sweet voice spilled out from the girl's pink lips. Chief's suggestion is not bad. Miao Yixiong's words were stuck in his throat. He opened his mouth but didn't know what to say. He felt an indescribable strange feeling. Yi Luo's smile, his tone. No matter how he looked at it, it didn't sound like he was agreeing with him. However, he couldn't tell what was strange about it. However, when he saw Yu Ji standing in front of him with a cold aura around him, he felt a chill run down his spine. Miao Yixiong reckoned that Yi Luo would not have a chance to make a comeback. He sneered. You should have been this tactful from the start. Give me the antidote. Yiqing Luo touched her chin. Even if I give it to you, do you really dare to let eldest Miss Miao take it? You. Miao Yixiong clenched his fists. Indeed, even if Yiqing Luo really gave him the antidote, he did not dare to rashly give Rongrong the antidote. If Yiqing Luo gave him a fake antidote, wouldn't Rongrong also die? Miao Yixiong didn't know about the grudge between Yu Ji and Yi Luo. He only knew that if he took the antidote and left, and the antidote was fake, by then Yi Luo would be killed by Yu Ji. His precious daughter would be buried along with him. No, absolutely not. Rongrong was the Miao tribe's future sacred maiden. This was the only chance for him to stabilize his position as the Miao tribe's clan leader. Chapter 2474. The more Miao Yixiong thought, the more flustered he became. Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes as she saw through Miao Yixiong's thoughts. She scoffed and looked away in disdain. Yu Ji's expression was indifferent. He had been watching their battle in silence, and there was no trace of anxiety on his face. When Yiqing Luo's gaze fell onto him, only then would there be a hint of arrogance between his brows, as though she looked down on Yiqing Luo from the start. To Yu Ji, the young girl in front of him was indeed not worthy of his attention. Secluded solitude. Yiqing Luo calmly called out Yu Ji's name. You're here, is because of me? Yu Ji frowned. Yes. Who is your master? Hearing Yu Ji's reply, Yiqing Luo was almost certain that this Yu Ji obviously knew her real identity under her disguise. Yu Ji would become Lanling Nuasgard and come to the Northern Wave continent. It was probably because of her. These people with the surname Serenity. Which plane of power did they belong to outside the Nirvana realm? Also behind them, that venerable one. Who exactly was he? Why did he target her so many times? When you die, Yama will naturally tell you. Yu Ji sneered. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased slightly. I know what I'm doing even if you don't answer. Yu Ji's eyes flickered. Everyone says that you are eloquent and know how to use pretense to win people's hearts. It seems that it is indeed so. Is Yuhan talking about Yunu or Yunu? Yiqing Luo didn't beat around the bush with him as her lips curled into a sneer. To be able to conquer people's hearts, it means that you have ulterior motives and you have something that I can use against you. Her smile gradually curved her eyes, but her expression was still extremely cold. Yu Ji glanced at Miao Yixiong, who was rooted to the ground as if he had been petrified. There was obvious disgust in his eyes. Following that, he looked towards Yiqing Luo and spoke out impatiently. Give him the antidote. You want the antidote? Yiqing Luo raised her brows and put on a smiling look. Yu Ji frowned. What? Do you want me to use force? But, even if you use force, you won't be able to get the things in my profound phoenix ring. Yiqing Luo's curved eyebrows blinked as she smiled in an infuriating manner. The profound phoenix ring was different from an ordinary interspatial ring. If it turned into an ordinary spatial ring, he wanted to take over the things inside the spatial ring. As long as he defeated his opponent and dug out his opponent's profound heart jade, he could use the power of the profound heart jade to open the spatial ring. However, the netherworld phoenix ring could only be opened by its owner. Yu Ji's eyes were cold and gloomy as it swept past the red jade ring on Yiqing Luo's fingertip. He suddenly flipped his palm, and a thick and strange black power rolled in his palm. Immediately following that, he had already struck towards Yiqing Luo's face at lightning speed. Lady Nethery. When Miao Yixiong saw this, he cried out in shock. The antidote, the antidote. Scram. Yu Ji suddenly waved his sleeve. Miao Yixiong was sent flying by the shockwave and tumbled to the ground. She saw that powerful and majestic momentum enveloping Yiqing Luo from all directions. Miao Yixiong's pupils were filled with that black profound energy, as it exploded and collapsed in his eyes. The ground was shaking incessantly. It was as if this dungeon could collapse at any time. Under such circumstances, how could Yiqing Luo? How could she still be alive? Chapter 2475. Yu Ji's attention was all on Yiqing Luo's direction. He did not notice Miao Yixiong's crazy behavior. In a moment of carelessness, his arm was scratched by Miao Yixiong. Yu Ji's face darkened as he shook off Miao Yixiong. However, Miao Yixiong's emotions were no longer stable. He held on to Yu Ji tightly. Sharp nails pierced Yu Ji's skin. His eyes were bloodshot as he glared at Yu Ji fiercely. You promised to get the antidote for me. How dare you go back on your word? How dare you violate our cooperation? Yi Luo was dead. No one could cure the poison in Miao Rongrong's body. There was only 1.5 months left until the Saintess selection. Miao Rongrong could not become the Saintess. The other clans would then take advantage of the situation to rise. His position as patriarch, I can't sit still. There was nothing left. Miao Yixiong was filled with hatred towards Yu Ji. If it wasn't for Yu Ji's arrogance, he also wouldn't take advantage of Yu Ji's presence to mock Yi Luo repeatedly. Didn't Yi Luo want money? If it could be solved with money, then it wouldn't be a problem at all. At the very least, Rongrong could become the Saintess. At the very least, he could keep his position as the patriarch. At that time, how much money would he have? The more Miao Yixiong thought about it, the more he wanted to strangle Yu Ji. But Miao Yixiong had never thought about it. The person who invited Yu Ji over from Lanling Nua was himself. Even though he knew that Yu Ji's target was Yiqing Luo, he still chose to believe in her without any hesitation, which was himself. Relying on the momentum of secluded silence who had once defeated Yiqing Luo, the one who was arrogant was still himself. What right did he have to blame others? However, Miao Yixiong would probably never understand. Yu Ji was annoyed by Miao Yixiong's craziness. He furrowed his brows and waved his sleeve. Miao Yixiong's body was sent flying by the strong wind released by Yu Ji. With an indifferent expression, Yu Ji turned around and walked towards the exit of the dungeon. Miao Yixiong fell to the ground and spat out a mouthful of blood. However, he grinned and laughed loudly. Yu Ji, why don't you leave? I've already planted the heart-devouring parasite in your body. Ha ha ha. As long as you leave a distance of 6 feet from me, the heart-devouring parasite in your body will eat you bit by bit, until all that's left of you is a skeleton. Yu Ji's figure paused, and his face was covered with a thin layer of coldness. How dare you? Miao Yixiong said fearlessly, I just want Rongrong's antidote. Once I get it, I'll cure you. Otherwise, all of you will be buried with the Miao tribe. In any case, he would lose the position of the Miao tribe leader. It was as if he had lost everything. Yu Ji lowered his head and looked at the wound on his arm that was bleeding black blood. It seemed that Miao Yixiong had used the opportunity of going berserk to plant a gu in his body. Damn it. He was too careless. The cultivation of gu and xianqi were completely different. Yu Ji did not dare to rashly use xian energy to force the gu worm out. Miao Yixiong, I can help you get the antidote, but I won't let you go. Yu Ji glanced at Miao Yixiong coldly. He did not like the feeling of being threatened. Once the gu was cured, he would kill Miao Yixiong. Miao Yixiong was not a fool. He could clearly see the killing intent in Yu Ji's eyes. But Miao Yixiong could only continue to pretend that he did not know. When he got the antidote, it would be up to him to cure Yu Ji's gu. If he could control Yu Ji in his hands and make Yu Ji work for him. Chapter 2476. Yu Ji suppressed his anger at being tricked. He took quick steps towards Yiqing Luo's direction. The rubble around the dungeon was about to collapse. In the airwaves were still swirling violently. Smoke and dust covered everything in front of him, making it blurry. He could vaguely see that there seemed to be 3 people lying on the ground. He didn't think about anything else and directly walked in the direction of the figure. In Yu Ji's knowledge, he was the strongest person in the Nirvana realm. Even if Yiqing Luo wanted to play any tricks, None of them had any effect on him. Moreover, he had absolute confidence in himself. That strike just now. Even if Yi Qingluo wasn't dead, he only had one last breath left. Yuji walked closer. The figure on the ground was dressed in red. She was lying on the ground with her face facing the ground. Her messy black hair covered half of her face. Apparently, it was no doubt Yi Qingluo. Secluded Silence half squatted down, his sword-like eyebrows furrowing slightly. On Yi Qingluo's body, there was a lady's delicate fragrance. It smelled much better than the artificial flowery fragrance on Dark Girl's body. Hey. Yuji reached out and gently pushed the figure lying on the ground. But the feeling of his palm touching her was not that of a young girl's soft body. Instead, it felt extremely solid. Yuji's eyes slightly widened as he suddenly realized something. He stood up abruptly and quickly tried to retreat. But just as he stood up, his vision was filled with dizziness. His body swayed and he fell heavily to the ground. Secluded solitude. Miao Yixiong was confused when he saw Yuji suddenly fall to the ground. He propped up his body that was injured by Yuji and walked over shakily. Don't come over. Yuji gritted his teeth and growled. His voice was hoarse and devoid of strength. Miao Yixiong's face stiffened, and he stopped in his tracks. From this angle, he just happened to be able to see the young girl in red lying on the ground in front of Yuji. And she seemed to be dead and didn't move at all. Yi Luo's corpse? However, if it was Yi Luo's corpse, how did Yuji suddenly become like this? Yuji was an expert who could easily defeat Yi Luo. Miao Yixiong was puzzled and looked again. Only then did he realize that the person wrapped in the red clothes was not a young girl, but a piece of steel. He then looked at the two faintly discernible figures, not far behind him. There was no need to guess. It was definitely the broken steel of the iron cage. This realization caused Miao Yixiong's eyes to gradually light up. This meant that Yi Luo was not dead. Since Yi Luo was still alive, Rongrong's poison could be neutralized. Yi Qingluo led the Bu family's two elders, as they carefully sneaked around the dimly lit Miao Stockade village. Fortunately, the Miao Stockade village cave was a forbidden area for the Miao tribe. Apart from the entrance and certain places within the Miao Stockade village's cave that were guarded by guards, other than the entrance and certain places within the Miao Stockade village's cave, there were no other patrolling guards. The three of them did not run into anyone along the way. But what gave Yi Qingluo a headache was, Peach did not have a map of the Meng Stockade village. After all, it was the forbidden land of the Miao tribe. No matter how powerful Peach was, she couldn't get the map of the forbidden area. Previously, when she followed Third Elder Miao into the Miao Stockade village cave, the totem on the wall had a huge impact on her. As a result, she had no way of memorizing the route. She could only follow the feeling in her memory, and led the Bu family's two elders away. Young lady. Chapter 2477. Elder T was panting heavily as his face turned pale. That's right, young lady, leave on your own. You will definitely be able to leave the Miao tribe. Let's leave together. Yi Qingluo interrupted their persuasion without hesitation. Don't you believe in my ability? I know you're very powerful. But no matter how powerful you are alone, two fists are no match for four hands. Elder T's face was filled with sweat from nervousness and running. His moist eyes were filled with emotion. Little girl, it's enough that you've done so much for us two old fellows who don't even know each other. We know that you have a kind heart, but we shouldn't have harmed you just to survive. From the moment you chose to believe me in the Bu family village, we are no longer strangers. Yi Qingluo lowered her voice and said gently, in the Bu family village, you believed me once. Believe me again today, I will definitely bring you away. Yi is still waiting for you. Yi. Grandma Bu's voice choked as she called out this name. Tears rolled down from her eyes. We are ordinary people. Following you will only implicate you. Elder T hugged his old wife tightly. Me and this old wife have lived for more than half a year. Even if we die here, it doesn't matter. Before I die, I'm already satisfied that I can wait for this old wife. I won't leave you alone. If you don't want to implicate me, then listen to me. Yi Qingluo held on to each of them and used her own strength to support the two old men. Go. If it was somewhere else, Yi Qingluo would definitely let Shiju out and carry the two old men away. But in the Miao village cave, it was strange and eerie. That pair of jade eyes, the big bloody mouth, the roar of a wild beast. All of these were deeply imprinted in Yi Qingluo's mind. She couldn't summon teas and was worried that Shiju would be affected by that pair of jade eyes. Especially, summoning Shiju would expose their whereabouts. Yi Qingluo could only use her own strength to support the two old men as they left. Not even a few steps away, Yi Qingluo's ears twitched. Following that, her eyes congealed slightly. Someone was approaching. Did Yu Ji discover that she had made use of steel to create the illusion of their corpses? Then used the blink movement secret art to escape the dungeon? She purposely poisoned her robe. Once Yu Ji got close, the fragrance from the robe would seep into his skin. Yu Ji will definitely be poisoned. It was impossible for him to catch up to them so quickly. However, the aura behind him was getting closer and closer. Yi Qingluo didn't have any other choice as her gaze swiftly surveyed the surroundings and directly headed towards the nearest corner in a flash. She brought the two elders of the Bu family and hid in a dark corner. The sound of a group of orderly footsteps could be heard. Yi Qingluo sneaked a glance from the corner of her eyes. Sure enough, it was someone dressed as a Miao guard. It seemed that her escape with the Bu family's two elders had been discovered. Yu Ji didn't chase after them himself. This meant that he was indeed poisoned. These people must have been sent by Miao Yixiong to find Miao Rongrong's antidote. If Miao Yixiong was searching for her, she still had the confidence to win. He was sure that Yu Ji was poisoned. He couldn't do anything to her for the time being. Yi Qingluo's heart relaxed a little. Gotcha. Suddenly, there was a pulling force behind her. Granny Bu softly exclaimed, "Old man." Chapter 2478. Behind Yi Qingluo was originally a wall. Even if he fell, he would only fall to the ground. But Yi Qingluo only felt that her body was empty. Then his body began to fall rapidly. Yi Qingluo's reaction was swift as she grabbed Grandma Bu's hand tightly. Granny Bu held Elder T's hand tightly. The three of them descended at an extremely fast speed. Yi Qingluo was adjusting her breathing and releasing her profound energy, while sensing the surrounding atmosphere, making preparations to descend anytime. The more he fell, the more Yi Qingluo thought about it, the more astonished she became. This hole was at least 1,000 meters wide. How could there be such a deep cave under the Hmong stockade village? They continued to fall for a while. Yi Qingluo was keenly aware of the changes in the airflow. She immediately released her profound energy to slow down the speed of their descent. Then he summoned Shiju. Shiju's massive body caught the three of them firmly. Very soon, Shiju landed on the ground. It was pitch black all around. The two elders of the Bu family simply couldn't see what was underneath. They were still in a state of shock, their bodies trembling as they constantly groped for the things beneath them. He only felt a ball of soft fur. Everything's fine now. Yi Qingluo gently held the two elderly's hands and comforted them softly. The darkness did not hinder her at all. Yi Qingluo could see her surroundings clearly. This was an oval-shaped cave. There was nothing inside, and it was completely empty. She jumped down from Shiju's body and took out a luminous pearl. The cave was not spacious. A luminous pearl was enough to illuminate the surroundings. When the light returned to their eyes, when the two Bu family elders saw the thing they were sitting on, it was a huge black leopard, and they almost fainted from fright. Luckily, Elder T's reaction was fast. Seeing Shiju's huge head rubbing against Yi Qingluo's arm bit by bit, he heaved a sigh of relief and pulled the old woman into his arms to pacify her. "Old woman is all right. This is a pet raised by a young lady. It's all right, it's all right." The relationship between an old couple was as beautiful as their first love. Just rest on Shiju's back for a while. She's a battle-type war pet and can protect you, don't be afraid. Yi Qingluo patted Shiju's head gently and immediately walked away. Shiju took small steps as it followed behind Yi Qingluo. Yi Qingluo took a look at the surroundings. There were no traces of any mechanism in the surroundings. Could it be that this place was really just a cave? Were they going to die in this cave? Yi Qingluo calculated in her mind the distance from the top to here. The idea of using profound energy or relying on Shiju to fly up. It was obviously impossible. They would definitely fall midway due to exhaustion. Young lady, are you looking for an exit? Elder T was carried on Shiju's back as he followed Yiqing Luo for a few rounds and asked hesitantly, Yiqing Luo nodded. Look at the ground there. Elder T pointed to the place where they had just fallen. I remember that I saw something there, but it was very blurry. I couldn't see it clearly. The ground? Yiqing Luo's eyes lit up. She only cared about looking for traces on the surrounding walls. But he forgot to look at the ground. Following the direction that Elder T pointed, Yiqing Luo quickly walked over. As expected, when they fell, the place where they were blocked by Shiju's enormous body, there was a very complicated but very obvious mark. However, perhaps too much time had passed. The ground was very dirty. It was impossible to clearly see what these marks were. Yiqing Luo squatted down and touched it with her hand. Chapter 2479. There was indeed something strange about the ground. I'll hold this pearl for you. Elder T saw Yiqing Luo's solemn expression and wanted to do something for her. Yiqing Luo didn't refuse and placed the luminous pearl in Elder T's hand. Elder T held the luminous pearl and stood by Yiqing Luo's side, trying his best to make the luminous pearls light, so that Yiqing Luo could see the ground more clearly. With one hand free, Yiqing Luo began to use both hands to feel the concave feeling of the ground. Her fingertips brushed past, and her mind followed this outline, slowly forming a picture in her mind. This concave outline was very big. It occupied at least 1/3 of the cave's terrain. Such a big outline. She had just run several laps in this cave and actually didn't find this outline. Yiqing Luo secretly ridiculed herself in her heart. When did she become so careless? After describing it bit by bit, the outline that her palm touched gradually formed in her mind. It was an extremely huge beast. Yiqing Luo hadn't been able to figure out the specific shape, but Yiqing Luo could be sure that this was a beast whose size was at least bigger than Shiju, Qi or Qi Yan. But she couldn't be sure. Was it the carvings on the ground that carved this beast into such a huge one? Perhaps to figure out the overall shape of this beast. Then she could leave this cave. Yiqing Luo's eyes lit up slightly. Her hands that were exploring also sped up and began to explore the interior of the beast. This was the head, eyes, nose, mouth. Yiqing Luo touched down bit by bit, while forming the shape of the beast's head in her mind. Her fingers suddenly touched a sharp place. A sharp pain came. She trembled slightly and quickly retracted her hand. A hole was cut on her fingertip. Fresh blood gushed out. She looked down and looked at the place where her hand was cut. It was the beast's totem's teeth. The sharp teeth were still stained with her blood. That drop of bright red blood made this carved beast seem to add a bit of vitality. This thought made Yiqing Luo's heart suddenly tightened. In a trance, she once again saw that pair of green eyes. The bloody mouth that was stained with blood let out a low roar. The eyes of the totem imprinted on the ground flickered with a faint green color. Little girl, little girl. Suddenly he heard Elder T's urgent call. Then his body shook violently. Yiqing Luo opened her eyes with heavy eyelids. She then met Elder T's worried eyes. Little girl, what's wrong? Are you okay? Yiqing Luo's breathing gradually calmed down. His eyes gradually regained their clarity. What happened to me? Yiqing Luo blinked her eyes as she recalled that pair of jade green eyes which she had faintly seen earlier, and her heart constricted tightly. You just... Elder T hesitated, as if he was choosing his words carefully. You looked like you were possessed. You stared at the ground and looked like you were in a trance. You didn't seem to hear me when I talked to you. It was the same thing again. Earlier, when he had followed Third Elder Miao to the dungeon, he had encountered such a situation. When Yiqing Luo saw that pair of jade green eyes on the surrounding walls, it had happened before. Now, it was that pair of green eyes again. It was a bloody mouth. It was a wild beast's roar. What on earth was going on? Chapter 2480. Why did the Miao tribe treat the cave as a forbidden place? Especially the totem on the wall. She couldn't even mention it. Third Elder Miao's fear towards the cave Yiqing Luo could feel it clearly. So, this totem, this beast, what did it represent to the Miao tribe? What secret was it hiding? If she could figure this out, not only could she leave this godforsaken place, moreover, she could coerce the Miao tribe to follow her to the East Continent to help Long Yunjian suppress the poison. Yiqing Luo took a deep breath, suppressing the messy thoughts in her mind. She smiled at Elder T and shook her head. I'm fine, just a little tired from staring at this totem, so I took a rest. I have some clues now. After confirming that Yiqing Luo was fine, Elder T was relieved. Yiqing Luo placed all her attention on the totem on the ground. Her palm followed the internal contour of the beast, confirming the body structure of the beast bit by bit. Perhaps she was highly focused. She didn't see it. The drop of blood on the totem's tooth was disappearing bit by bit. At the same time, the totem's protruding eyes, bit by bit, it shone with a faint jade luster, under the dazzling luminous pearl. Extremely weak. Yi Luo, how dare you trespass the Miao tribe's forbidden area? Suddenly, a deep and resounding roar resounded from within the cave. The young lady who was groping the totem on the ground frowned slightly when she heard the voice. It's coming. It's coming. Elder T's hand, which was holding the luminous pearl, trembled. Yiqing Luo raised her head and saw that there wasn't any mechanism at all. On the wall of the deep and long underground cave, a huge worm-shaped hole which was about the size of an adult man's body was reflected in her eyes. It was said to be a worm-shaped hole. It was indeed a giant worm. Its body was a giant hole, but the antennae on its head and the thin black legs were still swaying randomly. A figure walked out from the body of the giant worm. It was the Miao tribe leader Miao Yixiong. Miao Yixiong's gaze fell on Yiqing Luo. When he saw that Yiqing Luo was still alive, his eyes were burning with passion. Yi Luo, it's really you. This forbidden land of the Miao tribe was a taboo that the Miao tribe had guarded for hundreds of years. Once someone approached the forbidden area, they would be killed. Miao Yixiong could use the goo worms left there to sense the aura changes in the forbidden area. Yi Luo was the only one who trespassed into the Miao tribe. Therefore, when it sensed that there was a human aura in the forbidden land, it immediately went into hiding. Miao Yixiong did not hesitate and directly used the Miao tribe's most taxing and most harmful teleportation goo worm to teleport to the forbidden area. As expected, it was Yi Luo. She was alive. Still alive. The expression on Miao Yixiong's face was gradually tainted with madness and joy. Yi Luo, give me the antidote, give me the antidote. Yiqing Luo picked her ears as her face was filled with impatience. She was about to crack the secret of the totem, but he was interrupted by Miao Yixiong. No matter who it was at this moment, they would be so angry that they wanted to slap this person to death. However, Miao Yixiong only had the antidote in his heart. Didn't you want the coins? I'll give it to you. However much you want, I'll give it to you. As long as you give me the antidote, I will absolutely not interfere in the matter between you and Yuji. Miao Yixiong said anxiously. The eagerness in his eyes was exceptionally obvious. Star. Chapter 2481. Yiqing Luo. Was there something wrong with him? Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased as she looked at him impatiently. Miao clan leader, how big of a face do you have? After finding someone to kill me, you still tried in vain to buy the antidote from me. As she spoke, the disdain and mockery in her eyes deepened. If it was before, I would have been quite willing to make this deal with you. However, I'm not in a good mood right now, so there's no room for discussion. You. Miao Yixiong trembled with anger. But when he thought of the poison in Miao Rongrong's body, he could only suppress his anger. After the earlier scene where Yiqing Luo almost died in Yuji's hands, Miao Yixiong was now a little paranoid. He absolutely could not let Yiqing Luo die. He absolutely had to make Yiqing Luo hand over the antidote. Yi Luo, Yuji has already been poisoned. I can hand him over to you, and you can deal with him as you wish. Miao Yixiong suddenly recalled the grudge between Yuji and Yiqing Luo. Do you think you can control him? Yiqing Luo looked at Miao Yixiong in amusement, unable to imagine how this Miao tribe's leader could be so naive. Miao Yixiong knew how strong Yuji was. That was why he specially invited Yuji to deal with her. Now that he felt that Yuji was poisoned, he wanted to decide whether Yuji would live or die. Miao Yixiong's eyes turned cold. He clenched his fists and said, "He's been poisoned by my heart-devouring parasite. As long as he's 10 feet away from me, he'll be devoured from the inside out." Yiqing Luo raised her brows. This Miao Yixiong still had some brains at the crucial moment. He knew how to use goo poison to threaten secluded silence. Yiqing Luo suddenly thought of something as her lips curled into a smile which didn't look like a smile. "Tenjiang," she chuckled. "This cave seems to be more than 10 feet away from the surface." Miao Yixiong's face turned pale. "That is to say, Yuji's internal organs have already been devoured by the heart-devouring worm. Coupled with the corrosion of the poison, TSK. Yiqing Luo continued as she shook her head. "He's already dead. How are you going to hand him over to me?" Miao Yixiong's face alternated between green and white. His body stiffened and trembled slightly. The veins on his forehead bulged one by one. It was obvious that he was furious. Yiqing Luo leisurely stood up, as her hand gently caressed Shiju's head. Her long and narrow eyes were slightly curved. He had a leisurely look on his face. It was as if the person trapped in the Miao tribe and unable to leave was not her at all. Miao Yixiong restrained his emotions. His chest heaved up and down. For the future. He needed Yi Luo's help. He had only been humiliated by Yi Luo. Once he got his hands on the antidote, he could torture Yi Luo however he wanted. Just as he was thinking of softening his tone and discussing the conditions with Yiqing Luo, Miao Yixiong's eyes widened unconsciously. He froze on the spot. He stared foolishly at Yiqing Luo's back without blinking. His face was filled with astonishment and disbelief. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased slightly as she carefully turned her head and looked behind her. A wave of jade-green light covered the sky and covered the earth. In an instant, it covered her eyes. She felt a stinging pain in her eyes, and her body swayed for a moment. She couldn't help but close her eyes and raise her hand to block the intense green brilliance from hurting her eyes. Yiqing Luo didn't see. The place where she was standing was right under her feet, in the center of the totem. Rays of jade-green light followed the outline of the totem, as it continued to extend. Chapter 2482. This scene was clearly reflected in Miao Yixiong's eyes. He was frightened. He staggered backwards, not daring to touch that little bit of jade-green light. Seal. The seal has been unlocked. The seal that had been sealed for 700 years has been unlocked. His voice was hoarse and filled with fear. Yiqing Luo was shrouded in the jade-green light, but she didn't feel anything special. Only her eyes were pierced by the light and could only open a slit. What entered her eyes was still jade-green. She couldn't see anything else. However, since Miao Yixiong was not far away, she could still hear the words he shouted clearly. Seal? What did Miao Yixiong mean by seal? Was this piece of jade-green light the so-called seal? What was sealed in this cave? Gradually, the surrounding light finally dissipated. Her vision was soothed and Yiqing Luo slowly opened her eyes. When she saw the scene below her feet, even she was stunned. Only to see the totem outline under her feet was flashing, emitting jade-green light. The light wasn't strong. She hadn't had time to take a closer look at the totem carved on the ground. What kind of beast was it? Suddenly, there was a turbulence under her feet. Yiqing Luo's body was unstable as she swayed slightly. The totem under her feet actually tore open a crack from the center. The crack gradually widened. Yiqing Luo immediately leaped up. By the time she stood in a safe place, the crack on the ground had already split open by more than half. Under the crack, there was a piece of jade-green light and nothing could be seen clearly. The crack was about half the size of the totem. The entire cave's turbulence stopped. The cave fell into a strange silence. Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes as she stared at the crack on the ground, trying to see clearly what was under the crack. But other than a piece of jade green, there was still a piece of jade green. Yi Luo. Stop. You stop. Suddenly, Miao Yixiong's anxious roar came from behind. That voice had a trace of panic. Yi Luo, this seal must not be unlocked. Once it is unlocked, The entire Nirvana realm will be affected. Yi Qingluo was about to ask what kind of seal it was when she heard that. Two cries of suppressed fear could be heard. Then came Miao Yixiong's furious roar. These two old farts are now in my hands. If you don't want them to die, stop. The two elders of the Bu family. Yi Qingluo's pupils contracted. Wasn't Shijue protecting the two elders of the Bu family? With Miao Yixiong's ability, it was impossible for him to take the two Bu elders away from Shiju. Yi Qingluo immediately turned around and looked towards Miao Yixiong's direction. He saw Miao Yixiong grabbing a man's neck with one hand, his expression sinister. Shiju, on the other hand, stood at the side, its black fur standing on end as it bared its teeth and blew at Miao Yixiong. Shijue. Yi Qingluo's slender brows creased even tighter. Hearing its master's voice, Shiju's arrogance instantly dropped as it whimpered a few times towards Yi Qingluo in grievance. It's not its fault. Grandma Bu's neck was being grabbed. Although Miao Yixiong didn't use much strength, but she was after all an ordinary person, and he was already old, so his words sounded weak. It's us, ourselves. We don't want to drag you down, so we left its back, hoping to let it help you. So sorry, young lady. We've dragged you down again. Elder T was filled with guilt. Chapter 2483. The Miao tribe seal was released. That would definitely be disadvantageous to the young lady. A Miao tribe leader, plus the so-called seal. The two Bu elders were worried that the young lady couldn't handle it alone. So they thought of using this battle pet to help the young lady. Whoever knew, they ended up dragging the young lady down. To let the young lady be coerced by the Miao tribe leader because of them. It's all right. Yi Qingluo spoke softly as she comforted the two Bu elders. Don't be afraid, he won't touch you. Whether he moves or not depends on your performance. Miao Yixiong finally had a hostage to restrain Yi Luo and heaved a sigh of relief. But at the same time, there were some doubts in his heart. Wasn't it said that Yi Luo was someone from another continent? Why was he so familiar with the Bu family village? Everyone could see that. Yi Qingluo was very concerned about the two Bu elders. She didn't even hesitate to enter the Miao tribe alone to save them. In his mind, he suddenly remembered what third elder Miao had said before. Yi Luo was most likely related to the missing Miao tribe traitor in the Bu family village. This thought made Miao Yixiong's expression congeal. He raised his malicious eyes and looked at Yi Qingluo coldly. Leave the seal and come over here. He paused and hurriedly shook his head. Wait, don't come over. You, stand over there. Miao Yixiong pointed to a place opposite him. Miao Yixiong knew that he wasn't Yi Luo's opponent. If Yi Luo went near him, there was a high possibility that he would save the hostage. This was his only bargaining chip now. Yi Qingluo didn't make any sarcastic remarks this time. Instead, she directly walked towards the direction that Miao Yixiong pointed. Seeing Yi Qingluo being so obedient, Miao Yixiong heaved a sigh of relief. Before he opened his mouth, he was interrupted by Yi Qingluo coldly. You want the antidote? Antidote? Naturally. Miao Yixiong's words were swallowed back as he answered Yi Qingluo's question. But immediately his expression suddenly turned gloomy. But, young lady, the bargaining chip is in my hands now, so you should be the one begging me. If you want these two people to live, then listen to me obediently. Miao Yixiong's tone was extremely arrogant, as though he wanted to get back at Yi Qingluo for all the humiliation he had suffered previously. All right, go ahead. Yi Qingluo's lips curled upwards as she generously spread out her hands. She moved. Miao Yixiong cautiously grabbed the necks of the Bu family's elders and took a few steps back. You don't move. I won't move. Yi Qingluo smiled even more indifferently. But the more she laughed, the more she laughed. In Miao Yixiong's eyes, the more he thought about it, the more uneasy he felt. Now you know how to be obedient. In order to suppress the strange feeling in his heart, Miao Yixiong focused his attention on Yi Qingluo. This arrogant little girl was now so obedient. It was enough to prove that the two elders of the Bu family were very important to her. His eyes turned cold and suddenly he sneered. Little girl, I am not a narrow-minded person. How about you kneel down in front of me now and kowtow to me twice? Then the matter of you poisoning Rong Rong, trespassing into the Miao tribe, and even breaking the seal that the Miao tribe had guarded for 700 years, will be written off. No. No way. The two elders of the Bu family immediately stopped him when they heard that. How could they possibly let the young lady kneel down for them? Although they had not spent much time with the young lady, but they were clear. The young lady was an extremely confident person. It was absolutely impossible for her to lower her head to anyone. Such a proud and unyielding young lady. Chapter 2484. Most importantly, even if Yiqing Luo was willing, they weren't willing. Shut up. Miao Yixiong shouted coldly as his hands exerted more strength. Bu Lao Er coughed violently as both of their hands tried to break the fingers on their necks. Looking at the two of them who were like ants being pinched in her palms, struggling on their deathbed, Miao Yixiong finally had the pleasure of being able to hold his head high in the air. Thinking of how he had begged Yiqing Luo several times to give him the antidote. Thinking of Yiqing Luo's high and mighty attitude of not giving him any charity, Miao Yixiong's eyes were burning with excitement. Kneel down. Quickly kneel down. No. No. Ah. Before Elder T could finish his words, his neck was strangled by a force. He cried out miserably as his body stiffened and his struggling stopped as his eyelids started to roll. Yi Luo, if you don't kneel down, I will kill this old man and then this old woman. Miao Yixiong couldn't wait to see Yiqing Luo being trampled under his feet. He was the dignified Miao clan leader. He had always been high up. How could he suffer a loss in the hands of a young lady time and time again? He wanted to destroy this humiliation. He was still the noble Miao clan leader. Yiqing Luo's gaze was fixed on Elder T without blinking. Looking at Elder T's pale face and eyelids rolling outwards, as though he was on his last breath. Her gaze turned colder and colder. That gaze made Miao Yixiong's heart tremble for no reason. How dare you look at me with such a gaze? Miao Yixiong instinctively took a few steps back. You're not allowed to look. I order you to kneel on the ground and look at me pitifully while wagging your tail. He was shouting so fiercely, but his hands had subconsciously loosened the grip on the two old men. How would he dare to kill the two Bu Lao heir? This was his only bargaining chip. Why? Miao clan leader, you've captured two hostages and this is your only request? Yiqing Luo finally opened her mouth. Her voice was cold, and no one could tell the emotions in her words. Miao Yixiong clenched his teeth as he growled fiercely. Right. This is my only request. Are you going to kneel or not? I won't kneel. Yiqing Luo spat out two decisive words. Good, very good. You don't want to kneel? If you don't kneel, I'll kill him. Miao Yixiong's eyes were red with anger. He raised the arm that was strangling Elder T. He threatened, hoping to see a flustered expression on Yiqing Luo's face. But Yiqing Luo's pink lips curled upwards as she smiled gently. Miao tribe leader, do you really dare to attack? Her smile was filled with disdain and ridicule. Her long and narrow eyes slowly turned contemptuous. As long as something happens to them, the next person to die will be you. Her voice was soft. It was a very unusual conversational tone. Every word was like a hammer to Miao Yixiong's heart. He was so terrified that even his pores were dilating and his body was trembling. Miao Yixiong knew this very well. Yi Luo was serious. She had the absolute strength and confidence to kill him. Moreover, if he was the slightest bit careless, there was a high possibility that Yi Luo could save the two Bu Lao heir from his hands. After thinking for a moment, Miao Yixiong's arrogance gradually dissipated. His two hands loosened from the two Bu Lao heirs' necks and grabbed their shoulders instead. Chapter 2485. Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes in interest. This Miao tribe leader was really rather adaptable to circumstances. He could be high and mighty in an instant, and he could be humble in an instant, freely retreating and advancing. Suddenly, she understood the reason why he was able to sit on the position of tribe leader for such a long time. After all, if one was shameless, he would be invincible. Seeing Yiqing Luo staring at him with a smile which didn't look like a smile, Miao Yixiong felt goosebumps. He understood her emotions and moved her with reason. This is the Miao tribe's forbidden grounds. What you just opened is the seal that the Miao tribe had been guarding for 700 years. Luckily, this seal is not completely opened, and there's still one last layer of seal left. If the last layer of seal is opened, not only the Miao tribe will be in danger, the entire Nirvana realm will be affected and affected. Both of us are injured, so there's no way you can leave this place. So now, I should have the conditions to discuss the deal with you. Yiqing Luo's slender brows rose as her gaze slowly fell onto that crack which had split open. What kind of seal is this? Yiqing Luo didn't answer Miao Yixiong's deal but asked the doubt in her heart. The Miao tribe's seal. Why would it have such a huge impact on her? Miao Yixiong frowned as he felt displeased, but he had no choice but to answer. I'm not too sure what it is exactly. This is the ancestral order passed down by our ancestors. Every generation of tribe leader has to do their best to protect this seal from being opened. Yiqing Luo nodded her head thoughtfully. Yi Luo, if you want to leave this forbidden grounds, only I can help you. So if you give me the antidote, I will let the three of you leave immediately and promise that I will not find any trouble with anyone in the Bu family village. Miao Yixiong saw that Yiqing Luo wasn't going to mention about the deal, so he might as well tell her his conditions directly. Why should I believe you? Yiqing Luo shrugged. You hate me and need the Bu family village's people to find the traitor. If I give you the antidote, will you really let the three of us leave? Miao Yixiong's eyes flashed as his expression gradually turned cold. You can only choose to believe me. He paused for a moment. The expression on his face gradually became ferocious, adding a hint of madness. Yi Luo, you should know that if Miao Rongrong dies, she won't be able to become the holy maiden, and I'll be ruined. Since I'm ruined, why don't we all die together? Yiqing Luo could tell that when Miao Yixiong said these words, his eyes were almost bloodshot red, filled with madness and a trace of chilliness. He was serious. If he destroys himself, in that case he might as well destroy everything. Yiqing Luo scoffed in disdain. A selfish person like Miao Yixiong was truly cold-blooded and emotionless. He had asked her for the antidote time and time again. It was not for Miao Rongrong's life. It was because Miao Rongrong was about to become the holy maiden of the Miao tribe. If he was destroyed, might as well destroy everything and be buried with him. Little girl, now, you only have one choice. You can only choose to believe me. Miao Yixiong didn't care about what Yiqing Luo was thinking about him. You must know that your ability alone is strong, but with these two burdens dragging you down, don't even think of leaving the Miao tribe easily. Yiqing Luo's eyes flickered slightly. Her eyes were filled with a chilly intent. After some time, her eyes swept past the two Bu family elders and immediately closed her eyes as she opened her mouth. Chapter 2486. Granny Bu's body smashed heavily into the stone wall beside her. The old lady's weak body was trembling in pain from this sudden fall. And the next moment, Elder T took this opportunity to shake off Miao Yixiong's arm and rushed to Grandma Bu's side. Grandpa Bu, Grandma Bu. Yiqing Luo's heart trembled. She didn't expect them to use such a method to escape from Miao Yixiong's restraint. She hurriedly looked at Shiju. Shiju understood, and its huge body flew towards the direction of the two Bu elders. Miao Yixiong was shocked. The two Bu elders were his only bargaining chips with Yiqing Luo. He absolutely could not let them return to Yiqing Luo's side. He didn't have a second chance to restrain Yiqing Luo. However, what no one had expected was, after the two Bu elders broke free from Miao Yixiong's restraint, they didn't escape towards Yiqing Luo's direction. Instead, they headed towards the crack which was emitting a faint green light not too far away. Yiqing Luo's pupils contracted as she suddenly realized something. Grandpa Bu, Grandma Bu, you. Don't do anything silly, I said I can bring you. Young lady. Elder T, who was standing in front of the crack, stopped in his tracks. That wrinkled face revealed a comfortable smile for the first time since today's thrilling journey. His hand and Grandma Bu's hand held tightly. Don't come over. He looked at Miao Yixiong without a trace of fear. Come over and we'll jump down. Miao Yixiong stopped in his tracks. Shiju also stopped. Two people and one beast stared intently at the two Bu elders. Shiju stopped because he was afraid that something would happen to them. And Miao Yixiong stopped because he was afraid that he would lose the bargaining chip to restrain Yiqing Luo. Grandpa Bu. Yiqing Luo's fingers curled tightly. You come with Shiju, I can bring you away. The two Bu elders looked at each other and smiled. Their brows were filled with gentleness. Young lady, thank you for everything you have done for the Bu family village. Thank you for caring for me and old madam. Elder T smiled contentedly as he said every word. His voice was on the verge of choking. We don't want to be your burden. We don't want to see you suffer because of us. As Elder T spoke, tears rolled down from the corners of his eyes. You are a good girl with a kind heart. We can't bear to see such a good girl like you suffer for us. Grandpa Bu. Yiqing Luo's heart tightened. She who had never been rich in emotions couldn't help but feel a sour feeling at the corner of her eyes. I'm not making things difficult for you and you're not my burden. In the beginning, she had helped them in the Bu family village. It was because the simplicity of the Bu family village had moved her. He was used to the darkness of the world. She could see a trace of clean color, which made her feel very comfortable. Later, she came to the Miao tribe and saved the two elders of the Bu family. Part of the reason was because of Miao Yi. But more than that, it was because she really felt sorry for the Bu family's elders. She didn't like to meddle in other people's business. However, he was not a cold and heartless person. She was serious about saving the two elders of the Bu family and bringing them away from the Miao tribe. Chapter 2487. I think the old man should have told you about our matters. Back then, for the future of the next generation, I brought my family and moved to Qinghua City. Our village, at least 30 over people, brought their families along with them. But we had just left the Bu family village when we were stopped by the Miao people. Grandma Bu stared at Miao Yixiong with her teary eyes. Her eyes were filled with hatred and resentment. The Miao people carried out a brutal massacre on us without any explanation. The 30 over people who left the Bu family village, from the elderly to the newborn babies, all died tragically in the hands of the Miao people. Those people were the hope of the Bu family village, the few youngsters. All died in front of my eyes. My son and daughter are all dead. Only I survived. Shut up. Miao Yixiong's heart trembled. What he was afraid of was not Grandma Bu's hatred towards him, but he was afraid that Grandma Bu's words would bring out Yiqing Luo's hatred towards the Miao people and seek revenge for Grandma Bu. Grandma Bu gave a low laugh. Her laughter was filled with pain and mournfulness. Miao Yixiong. What people do, the heavens are watching. It's not that revenge is not coming, it's just that it's not time yet. You killed so many people in my Bu family village. In the future, don't even think about having a peaceful day. Miao Yixiong. The old man and I swear on our lives that even if we become ghosts, we will never let you off. We will turn into malicious spirits and haunt you forever. She laughed. The hoarse and aged voice had a hint of delight in it. She laughed for a long time. She slowly looked towards Yiqing Luo. The craziness on her face slowly turned gentle. Young lady, I'm sorry, really sorry. If it's possible, I hope you can avenge those innocent villagers in the Bu family village, so that we can die without regrets. Grandma Bu. Yiqing Luo understood Grandma Bu's current feelings. Seeing her own kin, her neighbors and good friends who had accompanied her for decades, die in front of her. No matter who it was, no one would be able to tolerate it. Grandma Bu had endured for such a long time. That was her biggest limit. And if it wasn't for Yi, I would have died when the Bu family village was massacred. She is a pitiful lady, without parents and no one to rely on. If it's possible, please help us, take good care of her. Grandma Bu. Yiqing Luo's heart trembled violently. She shouted at Shijue. Shijue, quick! Bring Grandpa Bu and Grandma Bu over. Roar! Shiju roared. And its body turned into a bolt of black lightning, rushing toward the Bu family's two elders. However, in the end, Shijue was a step too late. The Bu family's two elders had already made up their minds. He didn't give Yiqing Luo any chance to persuade him to stay. At the moment when Shi Ju pounced over, they clasped their hands and looked at each other. Her eyes were filled with a warm smile. Then he leaped into the crack, and both of them fell into the jade-green light. In an instant, he disappeared without a trace. Grandpa Bu! Grandma Bu! Yiqing Luo's eyes widened as she stared blankly at that crack. The two elders of the Bu family didn't want to be a burden to her. Resolutely he chose death. They knew very well that in this battle between Gu masters and Xian cultivators, they were ordinary people. He would only be a burden. Therefore, in order to let her not feel guilty, in order to let her leave with peace of mind, Chapter 2488. No. No. Miao Yixiong was filled with terror as he staggered backwards a few steps. His back was plastered tightly against the wall. Beads of cold sweat rolled down his forehead. His entire body was drenched in sweat. He who had lost his bargaining chip and hostage. How was he going to negotiate with Yiqing Luo? Especially, his attitude earlier had completely infuriated Yiqing Luo. If Yiqing Luo wanted to kill him in this place, this forbidden place which was isolated from the Miao tribe, he had no way to resist at all. Especially, earlier before Grandma Bu died, she specially requested Yiqing Luo to avenge the people in the Bu family village. Yiqing Luo was so concerned about that old fellow in the Bu family village. She would definitely kill him. The more Miao Yixiong thought, the more terrified he was. His entire body was trembling with fear. No way. He absolutely could not sit still and wait for death. He was the clan leader of the Miao tribe. How could he lose to a young lady? Miao Yixiong's vision slowly shifted to the side, where the worm-shaped hole was. A plan was formed in his mind. Just at this moment, there was a violent tremor in the hole. In an instant, rays of light that were as sharp as blades rippled out from the surroundings like waves. Boom, boom, boom. A few loud sounds were heard as the ground shook. The four walls, which were as hard as iron, were sliced apart layer by layer. The jade-green rays on the broken walls were piercingly cold. Extremely neat. This violent tremor, it made Yiqing Luo and Shi Ju unable to stand stably. Yiqing Luo summoned Shi Ju back into the pet space and swiftly avoided the falling stones. Her peripheral vision swept past the crack behind her. Yiqing Luo's eyes flashed past a sliver of disbelief and astonishment. That crack was surging with countless waves of jade-green rays, as though it was going to swallow everything in this hole. Oh no, the seal. The seal has been unlocked. Miao Yixiong stared at the sky full of jade-green rays, like waves, lingering around the entire hole. His legs felt weak as he laid paralyzed on the ground. Yiqing Luo's eyes were pierced by the jade-green rays. What did Miao Yixiong say? The seal has been broken? In his mind, Old Man Song's lamenting voice rang out. So, the final layer of the seal requires a husband and wife who possess absolute true feelings as a sacrifice. A freak combination of factors actually undid the Miao tribe's seal. In other words, Grandpa Bu and Grandma Bu both jumped into this so-called seal and became sacrifices to break the seal? The Miao tribe had guarded the seal for 700 years. It was unlocked. What exactly is this? Yiqing Luo had yet to finish her question. A majestic pressure completely enveloped her. The jade-green light devoured everything about her. All of his strength seemed to have been sucked out of him. His consciousness gradually faded away. His body weakly fell backwards. But Yiqing Luo didn't feel the pain from falling onto the ground. Her body was embraced into a greeting embrace. Yiqing Luo's breathing paused as she opened her eyes hazily. In his mind, a peerless demonic face of peerless elegance appeared. The man smiled at her. She was like a fox, charming and alluring. Her pink lips moved slightly as she silently spat out two words. Xian. Was Xian here? Once again, when she met with a predicament, he was like a deity, descending from the heavens. But what entered her nose was an extremely elegant plum fragrance. No, this wasn't Xian's smell. This person wasn't Xian. Yiqing Luo's breathing became hurried. She wanted to struggle, but her entire body, had no energy at all. The more anxious she was, the further her consciousness drifted. Ding! A melodious sound was heard from the pendant on Yiqing Luo's neck. Following that, a ray of light flashed out from that pendant. Chapter 2489. Inside the underground cave. Just as Yiqing Luo was engulfed by the jade light, a stone wall in the underground cave was blasted apart by a powerful force. Following that, a tall figure sped over. That pair of ink-like deep eyes saw the young lady who was descending from mid-air. That frozen face revealed a sliver of panic. He speedily went forward and held the young lady's soft body firmly in his arms. He lowered his eyes and gazed deeply at the young lady in his arms. His cold eyes gradually surfaced a sliver of gentleness and deep affection. Yiqing Luo. His voice was low and lingering, as though he was calling out his most beloved person's name. So affectionate. The young lady's slender brows creased slightly. Following that, her pink lips opened and closed, as though she wanted to raise her hand to pull him. The young man's eyes were filled with joy as he raised his hand, and was about to hold the young lady's hand tightly. But after seeing the shape of the young lady's mouth, the smile on his face slowly faded away. He regained his usual indifference, as though he was covered with frost. Xian. The person she was calling was Dmo Xian. The surrounding jade light was like a wild beast that was brandishing its claws and fangs, swallowing everything. But when the jade light touched the red-robed young man, it avoided him like a snake or scorpion. The jade light swallowed everything in this underground cave, but it forcefully separated the young man. Yiqing Luo. The young man's voice was a little hoarse. He called out Yiqing Luo's name word by word. His voice was cold and emotionless. You are mine, the person in your heart can only be me. The young man muttered softly, his voice was stubborn. He fixed his gaze on the young lady in his arms. His icy cold eyes flashed a sliver of red glow. Suddenly, he bent his head and kissed Yiqing Luo's lips. Just at the moment when he bent over, ding! A crisp sound was heard in the silent underground cave. It was extremely clear. The young man had yet to touch Yiqing Luo's lips. His eyes were stung by the intense white light in front of him. He had no choice but to dodge backwards. He raised his other hand to block his eyes. Bam! A gust of wind from a palm landed on his chest. His 5 viscera and 6 bowels felt like the world was turning upside down, and he was in extreme pain. He spat out a mouthful of blood as his body was sent flying. The girl in his arms was also taken away by an invisible force. Yiqing Luo. The young man's cold eyes froze and he didn't even bother to wipe off the blood by the side of his mouth as he immediately flew up and charged towards Yiqing Luo. It was as if the person who had just been slapped and vomited blood was not him at all. In his eyes, there was only Yiqing Luo. Zhu Wuxin, you want to take advantage of my absence to molest my woman? Are you courting death? A mellow voice faintly sounded. When the youth heard this voice, his body froze, and a trace of surprise flashed across his eyes. It was as if he couldn't believe it. How could that person appear here? Green light flickered. Gradually, a tall and straight figure appeared in front of him. His purple robe fluttered, and he stood tall and straight. On that peerless face, his thin lips were pursed into a thin line, and his face was filled with displeasure. This man, just by standing in front of him, Zhu Wuxin felt a powerful pressure that was continuously exerting on him. Zhu Wuxin's cold eyes flickered slightly, as he slowly met the man's eyes, which could shake everything in the world. Overlord. He spat out the words coldly, as his vision shifted, as it focused on the unconscious young lady in his arms. Give her to me. The man's deep and handsome face surfaced a sliver of coldness. This overlord's woman naturally has this overlord's protection. She's mine. Zhu Wuxin didn't give in at all. She has always belonged to me. Dmo Xian's eyes turned slightly cold, as he lazily squinted his peach blossom eyes, as his lips curled in disdain. Following that, his finger hooked lightly, as he lifted Yiqing Luo's lower jaw. Chapter 2490. A kiss. Not long after, just purely using his warmth to warm her lips, Dmo Xian raised his eyes as he looked at him with a smile which didn't look like a smile. Yours? Zhu Wu Xian's icy cold expression flashed past a sliver of emotion. In the depths of his deep cold eyes, numerous storms surged. What made him furious was not Dmo Xian's action. But he clearly saw the young lady who was nestled in Dmo Xian's arms. Her brows were relaxed. Furthermore, at the instance when Dmo Xian kissed her, a faint smile surfaced on her face. And when Yiqing Luo was in his arms, she was obviously rejecting him. Even her consciousness was swallowed. Dmo Xian was the only person on her mind. He was unresigned and unwilling to let go. He had set his mind on Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo must belong to him. Qing Luo. Qing Luo. Chu Wu Xian broke out from the huge hole earlier, and a few voices were heard calling out. Following that, a few figures rushed in hurriedly. How is it? Is Qing Luo all right? Did we make it in time? The few people who had just rushed in, when they saw the situation in the hole clearly, they were all stunned on the spot with a dazed look. In front of them, the surging jade light had enveloped everything in the hole. The surroundings were all covered by the jade light. Standing in the middle of the hole, the two people who were completely isolated from the jade light were especially eye-catching. Two men, different types, but both were equally outstanding, both handsome like gods. One evildoer, indolent and noble. Just a simple gaze, a minute movement. It was filled with an invisible pressure. Everything around the plunderer. One was cold as ice, domineering and ruthless. It was just a simple gaze, a casual action, but it was enough to send chills down one's spine. What kind of situation was this? Overlord? Yan Xiaoyi's eyes widened, and on seeing the man who was hugging Yiqing Luo, she opened her mouth in shock. You're back. Dmo Xian raised his eyes slightly as he squinted at Yan Xiaoyi, not saying a word. How is Qing Luo? Is she all right? Why did she faint? Yan Xiaoyi didn't care if the overlord answered her question as she asked worriedly. I'm fine. Dmo Xian lowered his eyes, gently gazing at the young lady in his arms. You don't have to worry. It's good that you're fine. It's good that you're fine. Yan Xiaoyi heaved a sigh of relief and her gaze swept the surroundings. Where's that Miao tribe leader? Didn't he also come to this cave? Behind him, a petite figure quickly ran a few steps forward. And where are Grandpa Bu and Grandma Bu? What happened to them? Tisktiasadesk. Zoemo rubbed his chin and clicked his tongue. The power of this seal is quite strong. If it were an ordinary person, they would have been completely devoured by the power of this seal. Miao Yi's delicate body trembled. I'm impossible. Grandpa Bu and Grandma Bu. How could they? He escaped. A low and cold voice rang out indifferently. Everyone's gaze quickly followed the source of the sound. Gui Wu, who had an indifferent expression on his face, calmly said, when it sensed the powerful energy of the seal, a surge of energy escaped from the cave. Is it the Miao Patriarch, or Grandpa Bu and Grandma Bu? Miao Yi's face was pale, her voice trembling. Gui Wu didn't answer her question. Instead he raised a pair of indifferent, emotionless eyes, looking at Dmo Xian without blinking. Chapter 2491. These words caused everyone's hearts to tremble. All of their gazes converged onto Dmo Xian in unison. Not the overlord? Yan Xiaoyi was so shocked that she swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Then, who is he? He's still carrying our Qing Luo. Xiao Jin held onto Yan Xiaoyi's shoulders, his face also full of shock. It's undoubtedly Lord Dizun. Even if someone could disguise as Lord Dizun, but this temperament, besides Lord Dizun, who else could it be? Zhu Wu Xian fixed his eyes on Dmo Xian. A pair of cold eyes without any warmth. You are not him. His words were cold and emotionless. However, Zhu Wuxin's tightly pursed thin lips seemed to have turned into thin ice, betraying his anger at this moment. The glint in Dmo Xian's eyes seemed to be filled with a faint trace of ridicule. He narrowed his peach blossom eyes and laughed in a low voice. I am not him, so you think you have the right to touch Lil Luoer? You are not him, and she is not yours. Zhu Wu Xian spat out coldly. His eyes were ice cold. Diemo Xian wasn't shaken by his aura but instead laughed lightly. So, you also admit that Lil Luo is this lord's woman? Zhu Wu Xian's expression turned stiff as he stared coldly at Diemo Xian. He knitted his brows tightly, already having doubts in his heart. This person could not possibly not be Diemo Xian. No one in the world could imitate such a temperament. Old man Gui Wu, if you don't make your words clear, this lord will not be able to explain. Diemo Xian raised his brows as he looked at Gui Wu, who had an indifferent expression. Master Gui Wu, what's going on? Is he really the venerable overlord? Lord Gui Wu, don't leave us hanging. You're making us nervous. Xiao Jin and Yan Xiaoyi anxiously looked towards Gui Wu. Gui Wu indifferently raised his eyes before calmly saying, "And he doesn't count." What do you mean by not considered? Yan Xiaoyi was about to die from anxiety due to Gui Wu. He's only a clone of Dizun, and not the real Dizun. Gui Wu finally said the second half of the sentence. However, the few of them were somewhat dumbfounded. What was a doppelganger? What do you mean it's not my main body? The overlord should have extracted a strand of his consciousness and placed it in an object on Yiqing Luo's body. At specific times, this consciousness will turn into the overlord's clone and replace the overlord to protect Yiqing Luo. Gui Wu explained in a rare patient manner. His gaze was like a torch as he stared straight at Diemo Xian. But extracting one's consciousness and transforming it into a doppelganger, not only will it consume more than half of one's profound energy, if the doppelganger suffers any damage, the main body will also suffer the same injury. Then he is. Hearing Gui Wu's words, Yan Xiaoyi was so shocked that she was unable to regain her senses. He can be called a venerable sovereign, but he's just a clone of a venerable sovereign. Gui Wu continued Yan Xiaoyi's words. For the overlord to be able to do so much for student Yiqing Luo, I can tell that he really dotes on student Yiqing Luo. This was more than just being doted on. He was practically using his life to pamper her. The place the overlord was going to this time was the upper realm. The upper realm that was filled with experts. The overlord had even consumed more than half of his Xian energy. If the overlord was in the upper realm, and accidentally discovered that he had consumed more than half of his Xian energy, wouldn't he take the opportunity to make a move on the overlord? It was impossible for the overlord not to have thought of these problems. But in order to ensure Qing Luo's safety, he resolutely chose to take the risk himself. They were so touched that they were about to cry. After listening to Gui Wu's explanation, everyone's feelings were different. Chapter 2492. Zhu Wu Xian stared at Diemo Xian's face without blinking. His eyes flickered with a strange glint. Just as he was about to bend his head to kiss Yiqing Luo, the pendant on Yiqing Luo's neck surged with a terrifying energy. Diemo Xian's consciousness. It was hidden on the pendant that Yiqing Luo wore. He actually used this kind of method to stay by Yiqing Luo's side. His hands, which were hanging by the side of his body, clenched tightly into fists. Everyone was moved and envied the couple in front of him. It stung his eyes. That young lady was obviously in his arms. She was clearly his girl. On what basis did Diemo Xian beat him to it? He didn't like Diemo Xian. Didn't like to see Diemo Xian hugging Yiqing Luo. Didn't like to see Yiqing Luo in Diemo Xian's arms, that relaxed look. Didn't like those people who treated Diemo Xian as Yiqing Luo's lover, denying his identity. Diemo Xian acutely sensed the intense resentment emitting from Zhu Wu Xian. He tightened his grip on the person in his arms as he squinted his long peach blossom eyes. Zhu Wu Xian, you know very well that the person Lil Luo chose is me. If you really love Lil Luo, then you should respect Lil Luo's choice. He paused as his lips curled into a smile. Isn't it said that if you really love someone, it is to see her happiness? Lil Luo, and me together is happiness. That smile was filled with provocation. Zhu Wu Xian's pupils constricted as his deep and cold eyes shot out an icy chill directly towards Diemo Xian. Diemo Xian's brows rose as the smile on his lips grew wider. If you insist on getting Lil Luo, disregarding her wishes, then do you think you're fit to use the word love to express your feelings towards Lil Luo? I don't love her. An icy cold word was spat out from Zhu Wu Xian's mouth. The person she chose is me. Mo Xian sneered. Are you lying to yourself? She said that she will marry me. Then she must keep to the promise between us. She promised me that she is mine, Zhu Wuxin said stubbornly. Every word he said was filled with a sense of danger. Mo Xian frowned slightly when he heard that. He also knew that for someone as stubborn as Zhu Wuxin, nothing he said would be able to change his deep-rooted beliefs. He could not be bothered to waste his breath on Zhu Wuxin. Lil Luo also did not have time to waste here. He lowered his eyes and looked tenderly at the disguised face of the person in his arms. He didn't lift his eyelids, but the person he was talking to was obviously Zhu Wu Xian. Lil Luo, is this Lord's woman, no matter if it's this lifetime or the next lifetime. Forever and ever, she will always be my Mo Xian's woman. You will never have this chance. I won't let go. Zhu Wu Xian's eyes were gloomy and cold as his deep eyes gazed deeply at Yiqing Luo. Soon after, he turned around and walked towards the huge hole that he came from without looking back. In an instant, Zhu Wuxin's aura disappeared from the cave. Yan Xiaoyi and the others were still in a daze towards this baffling fight for Yiqing Luo battle which ended in such a baffling manner. Yan Xiaoyi blinked as she recalled Zhu Wu Xian's unemotional denial earlier. He doesn't love Qing Luo? That look of his. Doesn't it look like he doesn't love Qing Luo? Ever since he found out that Yiqing Luo trespassed into the Miao tribe alone. Until he found out that Yiqing Luo had fallen into the Miao tribe's forbidden grounds, the dangerous sealed grounds. Chapter 2493. Zhu Wu Xian, that madman. He simply released his perception like a madman and followed Miao clan leader, using brute force along the way to break through 1,000 meters deep hole, rushing over here to save Qing Luo? He actually said he doesn't love Qing Luo? Who is he trying to bluff? Recalling Zhu Wu Xian's craziness earlier, Yan Xiaoyi was still feeling a lingering fear. Zhu Wu Xian could be said to be at the stage where he didn't even care about his life. This lord will thank him on behalf of Lil Luo. Mo Xian spoke calmly as he raised his eyes in warning. Yan Xiaoyi felt a chill down her spine as she sniggered a few times and replied in an extremely quick-witted manner. I know. Overlord, I will absolutely not tell Qing Luo about this matter. Qing Luo doesn't owe that madman Zhu Wu Xian any favor. Mo Xian nodded his head in satisfaction. Overlord, the split body cannot exist for too long. It will affect the original body greatly, especially in this place. You'd better return to your original body first. The silent ghost martial artist opened his mouth once again. When Kitty Lee heard that, she immediately walked towards Mo Xian as she opened her arms wide. Overlord brother-in-law, hand sister over to Kitty Lee. Quickly return to your original body. If sister knows that you hurt your body because of her, she will be upset. However, Mo Xian hugged Yiqing Luo and avoided her. No worries. He spoke in a low and hoarse voice as he gazed at the person in his arms as his brows were filled with longing. This lord misses her. Sister misses you too. Kitty Lee blinked her spirited black eyes as she spoke in a serious tone. So Overlord brother-in-law, quickly come back, don't let sister keep missing you. The arm which was hugging the young lady tightened once again. Kitty Lee didn't notice Mo Xian's emotional changes. She only told Overlord brother-in-law everything that she knew in her heart. She still wanted to say something, but her petite body was suddenly pulled by a strong force as she fell backwards. Kitty Lee cried out in shock as she wanted to struggle, but her body fell into a boiling hot embrace. A seductive voice laughed softly beside her ear. Little wildcat, don't bother about Overlord's matters. This lord misses you too. Mo, you frivolous man. Kitty Lee's cheeks flushed red the moment she smelled the familiar bamboo fragrance. Mo narrowed his red phoenix eyes and stared at the shy kitten in his arms. His smile became more and more playful. TSK, you look like a red apple. It seems that the little wildcat also misses me very much. Who missed you? Kitty Lee struggled with a red face and scratched him with her claws. However, her hands were locked in Mo's embrace. He smiled mischievously. Your face is filled with the words miss me, miss me, miss me. Kitty didn't. Kitty Lee's cheeks turned even redder. She stopped scratching Zoemo and raised her hands to cover her face. This indirectly proved how much she missed Zoemo. Enough, you too. Yan Shaoyi looked at the dog food which was stuffed into her mouth unknowingly. Qing Luo is still unconscious. The both of you please be more serious. Kitty Lee used her hand to knock the man behind her. Did you hear that? I asked you to be more serious. Zoemo smiled as he lowered his head and kissed her face. All right, this lord is serious. Oh. Serious, your big head. Kitty Lee's face turned even redder. Chapter 2494. Dmo Xian seemed as though he hadn't heard Yan Shaoyi's words. His gaze was fixated on the person in his arms. A pair of watery peach blossom eyes. Lingering with infinite tenderness. Yan Shaoyi's stretched out hand, quietly retracted back under this atmosphere. Xiao Jin sighed softly as he held Yan Shaoyi's shoulder and comforted her softly. Forget it. Overlord has been separated from Qing Luo for such a long time, and earlier he was agitated by Zhu Wu Xian. So naturally he can't bear to leave Qing Luo. But his original body. Yan Shaoyi looked at Dmo Xian worriedly. Overlord has his own sense of propriety. Xiao Jin patted Yan Shaoyi's shoulder. From what I see, the moment he saw student Yi Qing Luo, he had already lost his sense of propriety. Gue Wu's indifferent voice interrupted Xiao Jin's consolation. His gaze looked straight at Dmo Xian. Overlord, you should be very clear that this is the Miao tribe's forbidden grounds. Gue Wu's voice was very calm, but the meaning in his words was hair-raising. The seal's power is getting stronger and stronger. Going against the seal's power will only exhaust a large amount of your doppelganger's power, and your original body will also suffer the same amount of damage. Everyone's gazes instantly congealed on Dmo Xian. Overlord, you and Qing Luo still have a lot of time. Go back first. We will definitely take good care of Qing Luo, and will absolutely not let any other man get close to her. When Yan Shaoyi heard that, she instantly panicked. When Qing Luo regained consciousness, to know that Dmo Xian not only left his doppelganger by her side, he even exhausted his power to go against the Miao tribe's seal's power. Wouldn't his heart ache to death? Gue Wu. Dmo Xian didn't reply Yan Shaoyi but shifted his gaze onto Gue Wu as he spoke in a calm tone. I'll have to trouble you to bring them away from here. Gue Wu frowned slightly. You're not intending to leave? Dmo Xian looked at the person in his arms and nodded indifferently. Gue Wu didn't persuade him but really followed Dmo Xian's intention as he turned around and walked towards the hole which Zhu Wu Xian used his brute force to blast open. Zoemo hooked Kitty Lee's slender waist. Little wildcat, let's go. Kitty Lee slapped his hand hard. Didn't you hear what Master Gue Wu said? If Di Zun's brother-in-law didn't leave this place, it would consume his strength. How could Kitty leave my sister and Di Zun and brother-in-law behind? Silly Kitty, with Di Zun here your sister will be fine. Zoemo pinched Kitty Lee's pretty face. No. Kitty Lee's attitude was firm. She would never leave when her sister was in danger. I won't leave either. Yan Shaoyi pursed her lips. Gue Wu stood at the entrance of the cave and said impatiently, It's fine if you don't want to leave. Di Zun wants to die, but I don't. I don't have that much energy, and I don't need to waste my own strength. From the moment these people entered the underground cave, it was the barrier set up by the ghost marshal that was able to block the devouring power of the surrounding seal. Kitty Lee and Yan Shaoyi spoke at the same time. Dmo Xian interrupted the both of them. This is little Luoer's opportunity. The Bu family village's two elders used their own lives to open up this opportunity for little Luo. As for the rest, little Luo needs to complete it himself. Opportunity? Yan Shaoyi and the others were stunned. Leave this place with Gue Wu. I will take care of little Luoer's safety. Saying that, Dmo Xian carried Yi Qing Luo as he turned around and walked directly towards the crack which was surging with jade green light. Chapter 2495. Yi Qing Luo's consciousness was still in a daze, unable to gather. She felt that her entire body was floating, as though she was a feather. Luo. Beside her ear was that familiar calling voice. That voice was filled with lingering love. It made her heart feel sweet for no reason. She wanted to open her mouth to respond to that person's call. But her lips seemed to be stuck tightly together. She had no way to open her mouth. Luo. 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 The calling voice was still going on. Sometimes it was far away, sometimes it was close at hand. However, the emotions contained in each voice were stronger than the last. Who was it? Who was calling her? She wanted to open her eyes. She wanted to open her mouth to call the person who was calling her. But her entire body was unable to move. She could only allow her body to float up and down, float, float. Float. That calling voice became softer and softer. Gradually, she couldn't hear the voice anymore. Couldn't hear it. She couldn't hear it anymore? Suddenly, Yiqing Luo's heart twitched fiercely. A piercing pain made Yiqing Luo give a dull moan. The next moment, she felt that her feather-like body was being tugged by something fiercely. Her body finally had a sense of reality. Finally had a sense of weight. Following that, a warm touch warmed her pink lips which were stuck together, unable to open no matter what. The elegant sandalwood fragrance filled her nostrils. First was a simple touch. Following that it was a series of violent attacks. The scorching aura started to rise. Yiqing Luo's feather-like body, at the same time as the temperature of her body rose, gradually had a real sense of reality. She was no longer like a feather, drifting with the wind. Her consciousness was no longer in a trance, without any feeling. The sandalwood fragrance's smell became thicker and thicker. Her entire being was almost corroded by this sandalwood fragrance. Her entire body was restless and the scorching feeling made her subconsciously react accordingly. Luo. This time, the voice entered her ears extremely clearly, right beside her ears, as though it was whispering the world's only treasure, extremely pampering. Yiqing Luo's heart melted. Hence, under this fierce attack, Yiqing Luo gradually regained her senses. Xian. A hoarse voice spilled out from Yiqing Luo's pink lips with difficulty. She could finally control her body. Overjoyed, she was just about to call out the man's name. Unbeknownst to her, the man's large palm had already reached for her belt. He gently pulled. His robe loosened. Yiqing Luo suddenly shuddered and her half-dazed mind suddenly cleared up at this moment. The next moment she opened her eyes. What entered her eyes was a pair of bottomless, inky eyes. In his inky black eyes, sparks of fire were burning. Some kind of emotion was very obvious. Oh. Before she could open her mouth, her lips were ruthlessly sealed again. The man's familiar face was deeply reflected in her eyes. Her heart was pounding. Her hands instinctively clenched his collar. Xian, it really was Xian. She wasn't dreaming. Xian, he really came back. The thick longing instantly eroded Yiqing Luo's heart. The corner of her eyes gradually became wet. Perhaps it was because of the longing for Dmo Xian. Or perhaps it was because of Dmo Xian's fierce kiss. Oh. Suddenly, Yiqing Luo, who was indulged in the longing for Dmo Xian, suddenly widened her eyes. Her cheeks flushed red. She raised her hand and grabbed a certain disobedient hand. She wanted to stop it. But the man kissed her even more fiercely. Chapter 2496. But Dmo Xian's hand became more honest. Little Luo, after a long time, the man slowly let her go. He murmured Yiqing Luo's name as he rested his head on her neck. Sang Xian's voice was low and hoarse as it revealed infinite affection. I miss you so much. The man didn't conceal his feelings at all, which made Yiqing Luo unable to raise her temper. She blamed him for kissing her till she couldn't breathe when she just woke up. She snorted angrily, showing her delicate side. She slowly raised her weak hands and wrapped them around his sturdy waist. I missed you too. The man's arms around her body tightened. His face, rubbed against her neck, his warm breath, slowly awakened Yiqing Luo's sensitivity. They embraced for a moment. In Dmo Xian's arms, Yiqing Luo felt especially at ease. His body also gradually relaxed. Have you settled everything in the upper realm? You won't leave, right? She nestled in his embrace, her voice soft and coquettish. You stinky heartless man. You abandoned me for half a month. We're separated by a great plain. Even if I missed you, I couldn't contact you. The hard body of the man who was carrying her suddenly stiffened. Yiqing Luo acutely felt it. She bit her lower lip and placed her hands on his chest. He pushed it slightly. The man's head left her shoulder. Yiqing Luo raised her eyes and stared at him without blinking. You still want to leave? Dmo Xian's fingertips twined around a strand of her hair. He lowered his head and kissed her hair. I'm sorry. It was a tacit agreement. He would leave again. He would be lying if he said he wasn't sad. But looking at the fatigue in Dmo Xian's brows, that face filled with longing, his eyes filled with tenderness. No matter how unhappy Yiqing Luo was, neither of them could bring themselves to be angry. She missed Dmo Xian. How would Dmo Xian not miss her? She believed that if it was possible, Dmo Xian would absolutely want to stick together with her at any moment, to become a conjoined twins. But he couldn't. He was not only the venerable sovereign of the Nirvana realm. There was also another layer, an even more noble identity. A long time ago, she had often heard people talking about it. The greater one's ability, the greater the responsibility. Although to Dmo Xian, what happened to others had nothing to do with him. However, with his strength and status, he would not allow himself to be willful, even if it had nothing to do with him. I have to get involved too. Look at the tiredness in his eyes. Look at the dark circles under his eyes. It was clearly for his responsibility, so that he could meet her as soon as possible. That was why he was so desperate. How could she bear to blame Dmo Xian? Her heart ached for Dmo Xian. But in Dmo Xian's eyes, that was Lil Luo. Her silence was definitely because she was blaming him. Lil Luo, don't stay silent, hit me if you're unhappy. I'll let you hit me, don't ignore me. Dmo Xian grabbed Yiqing Luo's little hand and swung it towards his face. Dmo Xian, who had never coaxed a woman before. The Dmo Xian who could flirt with Yiqing Luo in minutes. At this moment, he was like a child who had done something wrong, using such a childish method to coax Yiqing Luo. She was really angry at the bottom of her heart. At this moment, they would probably be so amused that they would vanish into thin air. All right. Stop fooling around. Yiqing Luo forcefully retracted her hand. How could she bear to hit him? Who asked me to choose such an outstanding man? What else can I do? Even if he's kneeling, I'll still pamper him. Yiqing Luo's words made Dmo Xian stunned. Why did these words sound so strange? But her heart was filled with sweetness. Chapter 2497. Stop. Stop. Yiqing Luo raised her hand and covered the man's lips. The scorching lips were imprinted on her palm. The scorching sensation made her feel as though she had touched a burning flame. Her cheeks were once again dyed crimson red. Stop fooling around. Where are we now? Yiqing Luo glared at him coquettishly. Her brows were filled with a young lady's charm. Only in front of Dmo Xian, and only Dmo Xian alone, could see this Yiqing Luo. Ah Xian, do you know where we are? While Yiqing Luo was talking to Dmo Xian, she sized up the surroundings. As far as the eye could see, it was an empty piece of jade light. Apart from the jade green light, there was nothing else. Just as Yiqing Luo pulled Dmo Xian and looked around, not sure if it was her misconception. Somehow, Dmo Xian's body stiffened slightly for a moment. She was stunned as she turned back to look at Dmo Xian in puzzlement. What she met was a pair of peach blossom eyes filled with warmth. His thin lips curved into an extremely shallow arc, and his gaze was deep and serene, as if he wanted to imprint her deeply into his mind. Yiqing Luo's heart had an inexplicable fluster. She instinctively grabbed Dmo Xian's collar tightly. Slender fingers hooked onto his. Ah Xian, are you hiding something from me? She understood her man too well. Dmo Xian must have something to hide from her. Moreover, this matter was related to her, and this piece of jade light world. Dmo Xian didn't answer. Under the light, the man's deep and handsome face revealed a hazy and dreamy brilliance. She couldn't see clearly the expression on his face. The only thing she could see was the deep affection and pampering in his eyes. Ah Xian. Not waiting for a reply, Yiqing Luo's heart instantly panicked. The hand that held Dmo Xian tightened even more. After a long time in the jade light, the man's magnetic voice rang beside her ear. Nothing. He spat out 2 words. Lowering his head, his warm breath slowly seeped into her earlobe. The young lady's petite body uncontrollably trembled slightly. Her grip on his collar loosened as well. This is the Miao tribe's forbidden grounds. Dmo Xian gently held her hand as he explained in a gentle voice. His heart was beating normally. His voice was also very normal. It was as if that moment of shock and speechlessness was just an illusion. Yiqing Luo's arms wrapped tightly around his waist. She inhaled the sandalwood fragrance from his body. Only then did he slowly calm himself down. The 2 elders of the Bu family used their own lives to open the seal of the Miao tribe's forbidden land for you. Dmo Xian felt the breathing of the young lady in his arms, gradually becoming smoother, and between his brows, a trace of a relieved smile flashed past. His large palm gently patted the girl's delicate back. His eyes were quiet and unblinking, almost greedily looking at everything about her. Yiqing Luo's petite body stiffened at the mention of the Bu family's 2 elders. Her little hands tightened as she clasped onto Dmo Xian's wrist and raised her head from his embrace. This is the inside of the seal? She remembered when the emerald light had covered the sky and covered the earth. Miao Yixiong shouted that the seal was unlocked. Following that, her consciousness was swallowed by the power of the seal. In the end, she seemed to have sensed Dmo Xian's arrival. Dmo Xian had rushed over in time to save her, and even brought her to the inside of the seal. Chapter 2498. Yiqing Luo didn't understand the deeper meaning behind Dmo Xian's words. The next moment, she felt her body turning light. A heavy kiss landed on her lips. The man's breathing was heavy as he bit down harshly. Yiqing Luo frowned in pain as she raised her fist to push him. But before she could even raise her hand, the man had already loosened his grip on her. Lil Luo, or wait for me to come back. A light and ethereal voice floated in his ears. Yiqing Luo's heart trembled as she steadied herself, and immediately stretched out her hand to grab Dmo Xian. But there was only air in her hand. The jade-green light enveloped, and the man's purple robe was faintly discernible. His handsome face was filled with reluctance to part with her. Ah Xian. Yiqing Luo grabbed Dmo Xian once again as her tone was anxious. But her hand couldn't touch Dmo Xian at all. As the jade-green light grew stronger, the man's figure started to dissipate. I miss you so. I will return to your side immediately. The last silent sentence was clearly transmitted into Yiqing Luo's ears. Ah Xian. Ah Xian. Yiqing Luo shouted Dmo Xian's name loudly, but what pounced forward was still air. The man's figure had completely disappeared before her eyes. Only a faint sandalwood fragrance was left, proving that he had indeed existed. Ah Xian. Yiqing Luo stared blankly at the direction where Dmo Xian disappeared. Her legs turned soft as she knelt on the ground. Her eyes were empty as she frowned, not understanding what was going on. Why, he was still fine earlier. Telling each other how much they missed each other. He even passionately did that kind of thing. Why did it suddenly disappear? He said there was something important to her in this seal? But what was it? Could it be more important than him? Rumble. Suddenly, a thunderous roar resounded in his ears. Following that, Yiqing Luo's body shook violently. The ground beneath her feet was shaking. Yiqing Luo was shocked. She immediately steadied herself as she surveyed the surroundings vigilantly. Under the boundless jade light, Yiqing Luo totally couldn't see what kind of earth-shaking and mountain-shaking scene was. She could feel the ground beneath her feet cracking open with a schwa-schwa-schwa sound. But even if he lowered his head to look, what entered his eyes was a green light. She felt like she was in a green space. He couldn't see heaven and earth, he couldn't see everything. But the cracking feeling under his feet was especially obvious. At the same time, one of her feet stepped on empty air, and she staggered. She followed her instincts and moved her feet. Old man song, just what is this place? While following the aura, She quickly avoided the area where the ground had split open while contacting Old Man Song. However, her connection with Old Man Song seemed to have been cut off. She couldn't sense the aura within the Azure Dew bracelet at all. Boom. Another dull rumble rang out. Compared to before, the tremor was even more intense. The rumbling seemed to come from under his feet. Yiqing Luo was swayed so much that she almost lost her footing, swaying left and right to maintain her own balance. Hiss! A piercing buzzing sound shook Yiqing Luo's eardrums. Her brain was pierced by waves of pain. Yiqing Luo's slender brows tightened as she felt the feeling of the ground splitting open. She leaped up and quickly rolled backwards. Bam! Her back bumped into something hard. That hard feeling, Yiqing Luo couldn't use words to describe. Chapter 2499. Damn it! What the hell was this place? Xian, that bastard. After bringing her here, he disappeared on his own. Even if she were to meet with any opportunities here, he still had to make it clear to her. Now she was in a state of complete confusion. Yiqing Luo's eyebrows twitched in pain. She shifted her body and stretched out her hand to touch behind her. When she touched it, it was a hard and cold thing. It was very smooth, but at a distance there would be some bumps. Very hard, very hard. Yiqing Luo was confident that she could break a wall with one punch. But when she touched this thing, Yiqing Luo could conclude that this thing was even sturdier than those Supreme Being grade or God grade armors. Suddenly, that hard thing seemed to move. The ear-piercing buzz in her ears once again shook her eardrums. Hiss hiss, an extremely close distance. Yiqing Luo felt that her eardrums were about to burst. She subconsciously raised her hand and covered her ears. But her hand, once that dog left that hard thing, her body suddenly felt light. Her feet seemed to have stepped on empty air and instantly fell down. F***K. This series of changes made Yiqing Luo unable to hold back and burst out a vulgar word. What a F***King husky. This was a piece of jade green space. She couldn't see anything clearly. She couldn't sense anything. She was completely unable to determine how long this kind of fall would last. She had just fallen into a 1,000-meter hole. Now it was here again, life or death unknown. Yiqing Luo didn't have the mood to complain or complain. She took a deep breath and forced herself to concentrate, gathering the profound energy into her legs, ready to land safely. Roar, roar, roar. An earth-shattering roar went straight to the 9 heavens. The familiar sound made Yiqing Luo's concentration stagnate. Chi-Chi. Did she hear it wrongly? Why did she seem to hear Chi-Chi's tiger roar? Roar. As if responding to her words, the wild roar was heard once again. Following that, her body was caught by a ball of soft fur. Chi-Chi. Is it really you? Yiqing Luo's hands hugged the soft thing beneath her. The familiar smell and touch. It was indeed Chi-Chi. Master, the childish voice was indeed Chi-Chi's voice. Yiqing Luo sat properly on Chi-Chi's back. Why did you come out? How is your body? Old Man Song said that you and Qi Yan are asleep because you are evolving. What do you think? Chi-Chi, whom he had not seen for a long time, finally appeared in front of him again. Yiqing Luo was extremely touched. A piece of his heart was finally put down. Qi Yan, it woke up too? We're all fine. It's all thanks to Master's heaven-returning nether pill. Chi-Chi smiled and wagged his tail. We don't need little Chi here. Chi-Chi will protect Master. Yiqing Luo rubbed Chi-Chi's back. Chi-Chi, do you know what this place is? I don't know. Chi-Chi answered its master's question honestly. Chapter 2500. She didn't know how long Chi-Chi had been running with her. Yiqing Luo only saw a piece of green in front of her. She didn't know where Chi-Chi had taken her. Master, do you feel it? Chi-Chi seemed to be very excited. Its tail kept swaying. The strength was so great that Yiqing Luo could feel the wind from the swaying tail. Yiqing Luo said that she didn't feel anything except the wind. Chi-Chi's mood suddenly lost a lot. You really don't feel it? Yiqing Luo face-bombed. What did Xiao Qi want her to feel? Could it be a call prompt? Chi-Chi leaped and seemed to be circling around something, striding its limbs again. Strange. How could Master not feel it? After several laps, Yiqing Luo expressed a face of confusion. You stupid tiger. A clear voice sounded out of thin air. Chi-Chi's tiger body shook. Little Chi-Chi. If you say Chi-Chi is stupid, Chi-Chi will. Chi-Chi's little voice was soft and cute. After holding it for a long time, Yiqing Luo thought that Chi-Chi would fight back with great lethality, only to hear Chi-Chi roaring angrily. Chi-Chi also wants to call you stupid bird. Yiqing Luo. My Chi-Chi is amazing, worthy of being her family's pure and lovely little thing. I said you are stupid, you still don't admit it? Qi Yan's disdainful voice with arrogance. What do you want the ugly woman to feel? She is not a sacred beast. Yiqing Luo. She had already become her war pet. Could she show some respect to her as a war pet? Chi-Chi whispered woo-woo, seemed to be very wronged by Qi Yan's scolding. The woman who was ignored by the two sacred beasts cleared her throat and rubbed Chi-Chi's head with her little hand. Don't talk in riddles, what do I need to do? Let's hurry up. Listening to the conversation between Chi-Chi and Qi Yan. Obviously, these two people knew where they were. Qi Yan snorted, his tone was full of disgust. Stupid tiger, don't follow the ugly woman, just throw her down. Qi Yan didn't show up, still in the pet space. But just listening to its tone, Yiqing Luo could almost imagine the arrogant and disdainful look on Qi Yan's face. Yiqing Luo expressed that as the owner of a Tsundra war pet, it was really too sad. Throw her off. Was he going to enjoy the thrill of falling from a high altitude again, and not knowing when he would land? Chi-Chi, don't be influenced by Qi Aojiao. My Chi-Chi loves you the most. Yiqing Luo was just about to hug Chi-Chi's neck to express Chi-Chi's gentleness, and not to be in cahoots with a certain arrogant bird. However, before he could finish his words, her body felt light, and then she fell from the sky as she was familiar with it. Chi-Chi really threw her down from her back. Didn't you say not to learn bad things from Qi Aojiao? Why was Chi-Chi so obedient to Qi Aojiao? Yiqing Luo had yet to gather her profound energy again. Then he felt a powerful force coming down on him. Her pupils reflected an extremely gorgeous green brilliance. Bang! That ray of jade light fiercely crashed onto Yiqing Luo's body. Yiqing Luo only felt a strong numbing pain all over her body. Her vision turned black and she fainted. Chi-Chi, who was standing by the side, stared at Yiqing Luo, who was wrapped in a piece of jade light, worriedly. The current Yiqing Luo, suspended in mid-air. Numerous jade lights entangled her bit by bit. Chapter 2501. It's all right. Qi Yan replied indifferently. If she can't even bear this bit of power, then what qualifications does she have to be our master? Chi-Chi's eyes widened as it shook its head in disapproval. Little Chi-Chi, what you said is wrong. No matter what master is or how powerful she is Chi-Chi's master. It was not because of its master's ability that it became its master's battle pet. It really liked its master. It was willing to stay by its master's side and protect her. Qi Yan didn't speak again for a moment. Chi-Chi was a little angry because of what Qi Yan said earlier, and didn't want to bother with Qi Yan anymore. It stared at its master without blinking, like a knight guarding its master. Yiqing Luo was in a daze. She only felt that there was a voice in her mind, constantly clamoring. She wanted to hear clearly whose voice it was. But that voice was illusory and she couldn't hear it clearly. The only thing she could be sure of was, it was that voice that kept calling her name. There seemed to be something in her chest, like a whirlpool fiercely stirring. Following that, she felt as if something had surged into her body. Her whole body was swollen and painful. She groaned in pain. The clamoring in her mind became louder and noisier at this moment. What was that voice saying? Why did it keep calling her name? In a daze, Yiqing Luo saw a dash of jade light, flickering in front of her eyes. She frowned, trying to see more clearly. But she only saw that wisp of jade light, turned into jade fog, slowly seeping into her heart. At the same time, a surge of majestic power, like an avalanche, filled her limbs and bones. The heaven and earth spiritual qi, crazily swam in her body. Ah! Yi Qing Luo cried out in pain from the impact of this surging power. The next moment, she suddenly opened her eyes. Her body was like a spring sitting upright. The moment she opened her eyes, a ray of jade light shot out from her eyes. Master! Seeing Yi Qing Luo open her eyes, Chi immediately went forward, its tiger eyes looking at Yi Qing Luo. However, Yi Qing Luo didn't have the energy to answer it. The moment she opened her eyes, she noticed the changes in her body. She quickly sat down cross-legged. Yi Qing Luo could clearly feel the barrier of advancement. Ever since she advanced to the sky profound realm, no matter how much heaven and earth spiritual energy she absorbed, no matter how fast her profound strength grew, she couldn't even advance. And this time, he had been stuck at the profound rank for so long. Finally, there were signs of advancement. Was this the opportunity that Xian had mentioned? Numerous profound energy was guided by Yi Qing Luo in his body. As it flowed bit by bit, the majestic and turbulent energy was getting stronger and stronger. It was like a whirlpool that came one after another. Boom! In Yi Qing Luo's mind, a sudden clap of thunder exploded. The profound energy that was swirling around his body shook as well. Following that, it slowly merged into Yi Qing Luo's body. Everything in the surroundings gradually regained its tranquility. Yi Qing Luo's breathing also calmed down. She slowly opened her eyes. Her enchanting eyes twinkled, causing her disguised face to look even more dazzling. She exhaled a breath of foul air. Her entire body was filled with a refreshing feeling. Master! Chi cried out in joy, striding forward on its forelimbs, as it flew to Yi Qing Luo's side. No wonder she was its master. Chapter 2502. Chi. Yi Qing Luo hugged Chi's head. That plump tiger head. Yi Qing Luo couldn't even hug it with one hand. But Yi Qing Luo's 5 fingers grabbed onto Chi's fur as she raised her brows. Little Chi, who is your master? Chiao Jiao asked you to throw me away, and you threw me away just like that? When the last word was spat out, Yi Qing Luo intentionally emphasized the ending. Chi's huge tiger body shuddered slightly. The huge tiger eyes immediately revealed an aggrieved expression. Master! Sob. Chi didn't do it on purpose. Her childish voice was filled with a sense of grievance. Saying that, it even used its head and rubbed against Yi Qing Luo's body bit by bit. A tiger as huge as a mountain was acting cute in front of her. What kind of feeling was that? Yi Qing Luo expressed that she had raised a big cat. Speak. Why must you listen to Chiao Jiao? Yi Qing Luo's heart was softened by Chi's cute actions, but she pretended to be angry on the surface. This little fellow obviously knew what this place was, and what the opportunity that Xian mentioned was. But it refused to say anything, not letting this little fellow explain anything. Even her own war pet, her own little fellow, could do little tricks behind her back. Was she still considered as a qualified master? As expected, when it saw Yi Qing Luo's straight face, Chi immediately cried and acted cute, because Chi wants to help master. Under Chi's childish explanation, Yi Qing Luo finally understood. This sealed ground, what kind of place was it? She finally understood. Why Dmo Xian said that this was her opportunity, and the reason why Chi and Qi Yin would appear here. So the Miao tribe's forbidden land was sealed. It was one of the 4 sacred beasts. Black Tortoise. Just earlier, after Chi and Black Tortoise had a short contact, Chi then understood the reason why the Black Tortoise was sealed here. 700 years ago, Black Tortoise, which had been in deep slumber, was awakened by a summon near the Miao tribe village. A sacred beast which could summon the wind and rain. In this lower plane there was no master to control them. Since it did not differentiate between good and evil, it naturally did as it pleased without any apprehension, and stirred up a storm in the Nirvana realm. However, even though it was one of the 4 great divine beasts, it had been in a deep slumber for too long after all. The spiritual energy in the lower realm was not as pure as it used to be. The Black Tortoise consumed too much energy, when he couldn't replenish his spiritual qi. At that time, The holy maiden of the Miaogu clan had used a forbidden art of the Miaogu clan to seal the black tortoise under the Miaogu clan. She had left behind an ancestral teaching to suppress the seal for generations to come. And this time, the arrival of Yi Qingluo and the Tubu elders coincidentally unlocked the black tortoise's seal. Yi Qingluo and the two sacred beasts had already signed the contract. Her blood could naturally cause the black tortoise to react. That drop of blood from Yi Qingluo had unlocked the first layer of black tortoise's seal. Then the two elders of the Bu family used their true feelings as a sacrifice to open the second layer of the seal. He successfully awakened the black tortoise. And because of that, there was that scene earlier. So to say, you listened to Qiao Jiao's words and threw me down, just to let me contract the black tortoise? Yi Qingluo understood the meaning behind Qi-Qi's words. Qi-Qi valued her, just like how she valued Qi-Qi. Chapter 2503. I'm not contracting the black tortoise either. Qi-Qi mumbled softly. The black tortoise's temperament is different from ours. It doesn't differentiate between good and evil. Everything depends on its own preferences. Yi Qingluo pinched Qi-Qi's ears. In that case, you're not sure if black tortoise will accept me, so you threw me down? Qi-Qi blinked its intelligent tiger eyes. Qi-Qi believes that as long as its master, he will definitely be able to find the black tortoise. Saying that, he carefully sized up Yi Qingluo's expression. Seeing that Yi Qingluo's expression didn't change, he hurriedly added another sentence. Master can even contract that bad-tempered little Qi-Qi, so it shouldn't be a problem for you to contract black tortoise. After the little guy woke up, his ability to act coquettishly and flatter had increased. Yi Qingluo pinched Qi-Qi's face, and didn't continue to argue with Qi-Qi over this point. Instead, she grasped the main point of Qi-Qi's words and asked, You said you found the black tortoise. Found? What do you mean? Qi-Qi said that she had succeeded. But Yi Qingluo didn't sense the presence of the black tortoise in the pet space. Furthermore, she could not even sense the black tortoise's aura. Therefore, she did not contract the black tortoise. Only half of the black tortoise's soul is sealed here. Qi-Qi lowered her head and said softly, Half a soul? Yi Qingluo suddenly recalled that when she was in a daze, she saw a smear of jade green fog. Could that be the black tortoise's soul? Qi-Qi seemed to have seen through the doubt in Yi Qingluo's heart as it nodded its big tiger head. Black tortoise has accepted master. That's why it willingly sent its soul into master's profound heart jade. It was no wonder that after the green mist entered her heart, she felt that powerful force almost burst her meridians. She was promoted. It was also because he had absorbed the black tortoise's soul. Master can first use the profound heart jade to nurture the black tortoise's soul. When you find the other half of the black tortoise's soul, Master can form a contract with the black tortoise. There was a trace of excitement in Qi-Qi's voice. Yi Qingluo raised her hand and gently pressed on the area where her heart was. He sensed the extremely quiet soul within the profound heart jade. She sighed. I see. Moreover, black tortoise was Qi-Qi and Qi Yan's brother. Seeing how excited Qi-Qi was, it was as if she was about to meet her best friend. Yi Qingluo couldn't bear to reject him. What's more, she had contracted the black tortoise, which was beneficial to her. However, Yi Qingluo recalled that Jun Qinggu had once told her about another way to head to the upper realm. Now, the three sacred beasts were all in her hands. In other words, even the heavens were helping her make the choice. He helped her choose to collect the sacred beast beads and open the path to the upper realm. Master, the black tortoise's soul is already in your profound heart jade. The Miao tribe seal has also been broken. Very soon this place will collapse. Qi-Qi will bring you out of here first. Qi-Qi used her head to nudge Yi Qingluo and reminded her. Yi Qingluo nodded and quickly leaped onto Qi-Qi's back. Rumble. Almost at the same time, a violent earthquake broke out in the surroundings. Countless explosions rang out. Qi-Qi's forelimbs moved as it sprinted upwards. Boom. Yi Qingluo felt something collapsing behind her. For some reason, she turned around to take a look. Chapter 2504. That stone statue was extremely huge. It was at least one size bigger than Chi-Chi's current form. It looked like a huge tortoise. Its entire body was wrapped in a hard tortoise shell. The most horrifying thing was, on that huge tortoise shell, there were two snake-like and dragon-like things. Boom boom. It was another earth-shattering sound. The stone statue broke apart and fell down. Yiqing Luo saw it. That pair of jade green eyes was especially bright in the jade light. Bam! Yiqing Luo only felt a gust of bone-piercing wind brushing past her face. The body that was sitting on Chi-Chi's back was flung out violently. Qing Luo. A few familiar voices rang in her ears. Immediately she saw a slender figure flying over and catching her steadily. The impact of Yiqing Luo being flung out was rather strong. Both of them retreated more than 10 meters before they managed to stabilize themselves. Yiqing Luo felt a little dizzy as she shook her head and raised her eyes. She met with a cold and beautiful face. Little Wu Wu. Yiqing Luo smiled. Jun Qingwu's face was icy cold as she let go of her hand. Steady yourself. Yiqing Luo felt that this attitude was like a domineering CEO. Her feet were standing on the ground. She could feel the real feeling of standing on the ground. Yiqing Luo finally had a feeling of being revived. After she stabilized herself, she immediately sensed Chi-Chi's direction. Chi-Chi, are you alright? The moment they came out of the Forbidden Grounds. The Forbidden Grounds exploded automatically. This caused a human and a beast to be flung out. Chi-Chi's body was huge, and the sacred beast's agility was hundreds of times stronger than a human. After it was flung out, it quickly stabilized itself, just as it was about to catch its master. But it discovered its master was being carried in the arms of a beautiful sister. Chi-Chi blinked its tiger eyes in shock. Master is with the beautiful sister behind the overlord's back. Yiqing Luo. Huh? Jun Qingwu. The surrounding crowd. Ha ha ha. Chi-Chi, go back and have a good rest. Yiqing Luo felt that the little fellow's words were too shocking and decisively recalled Chi-Chi back into the pet space. Not long after Chi-Chi woke up, he had also spent too much energy in the forbidden area. He returned to the pet space. Yan Xiaoyi and the others crowded around. Qing Luo, are you alright? The few of them surrounded Yiqing Luo and sized her up. After confirming that there were no wounds on Yiqing Luo's body, he was finally relieved. Outside of the crowd, Guiwu glanced at Yiqing Luo indifferently. Promoted? Does this mean that you've already gotten the opportunity that Dizun mentioned? Guiwu's words. Only then did everyone realize. Yiqing Luo's entire temperament had another layer of rebirth. That pair of charming eyes was still clear and enchanting, but there was a trace of unfathomable brilliance in them. Yan Xiaoyi was so shocked that her mouth was agape. My God, Qing Luo, you're simply too abnormal. How long has it been? You've advanced a grade again? One must know that Yiqing Luo was a sky-profound cultivator. The sky-profound realm could be said to be the God realm in everyone's mind. Advancing to the next rank was much more difficult than advancing to the next rank. Yiqing Luo actually advanced again. This group of ordinary people had been devastated to the point that they had nothing left to live for. Yiqing Luo nodded and raised her eyes to look at the indifferent Guiwu. I have something to ask you. Guiwu saw through Yiqing Luo's thoughts. Want to ask about the overlord? Chapter 2505. Yiqing Luo had always known that Guiwu was absolutely not just a martial arts fanatic from the lower realm, or a grandmaster who guided his students. Dmo Xian was mentioned. Even Yan Xiaoyi fell silent. Yiqing Luo saw that the few of them didn't look too good. Her heart sank. Suddenly, he recalled the scene of Dmo Xian disappearing in the Forbidden Land. Her heart tightened, and when she opened her mouth again, her voice was a bit hoarse. Did something happen to Xian? Otherwise, Xian would not have left her at that time. When Xian was in the Forbidden Land, something was obviously wrong. His entire person was like a gust of wind, disappearing into thin air. Something did happen. Guiwu did not beat around the bush. Yiqing Luo's heart thumped fiercely as her complexion instantly turned pale, and her petite body unconsciously swayed. What nonsense are you talking about? The overlord's brother-in-law is not in trouble. Kitty Lee couldn't bear to see her own sister in such a state as she immediately struggled out of Zomo's restraint, wanting to comfort Yiqing Luo. Zomo tightened his arms, narrowed his phoenix eyes, and whispered in her ear, "Little wildcat, be good and let me hold you. Don't talk, okay?" The rising tone of his voice had a devilish charm to it. Kitty Lee's ears were sensitive, so when Zomo's warm breath brushed past her, her delicate body immediately went soft. She blushed and hit his arm. "Frivolous man, let go of Kitty Lee. Kitty wants to accompany big sister." "You said it yourself. Dizun is fine. Won't she be more worried that something has happened to Dizun if you're in such a hurry to accompany her?" Zoemo raised his eyebrows. Kitty Lee was stunned and bit her lower lip. In the end, she stopped struggling and looked at Yiqing Luo seriously. "Sister, overlord brother-in-law is really fine. He wouldn't bear to make you unhappy." Yiqing Luo closed her eyes and waved away the image of Dmo Xian's disappearance that kept replaying in her mind. "Master Gui Wu, the Xian who accompanied me in the forbidden area just now, isn't the real Xian, right?" Actually, when Dmo Xian disappeared, she already had a trace of conjecture in her heart. However, she deliberately buried all her guesses in the bottom of her heart and pretended not to notice. "Yes." Gui Wu's reply was straightforward, concise and comprehensive, as he calmly told her about the matter regarding Dmo Xian and his doppelganger. Yiqing Luo quietly listened to Gui Wu's words. The expression on his face was very calm. However, every single word that Gui Wu said, every single sentence, Yiqing Luo's heart felt as though it was pricked by needles. He actually left a trace of his consciousness in her pendant to protect her. From start to finish, he had never left her side. Compared to the Nirvana realm, the place he was heading to was the upper realm. It was such a dangerous place. He was still taking such risks, just to protect her. This man, why did he always do things that made her both angry and touched? Gui Wu had said it before. In the forbidden area, Dmo Xian had already exhausted a lot of energy to contend against the seal power set by the Miao tribe's ancestors. Then, in order to protect her, he safely entered the sealed land. Moreover, it consumed a large amount of his own strength. In other words, when Dmo Xian disappeared at the end, this was the last trace of his remaining consciousness and strength in her. Ever since they entered the seal, Dmo Xian had been using his strength to block the swallowing of the seal's power. He knew that with Chi and Chi Yin around, Black Tortoise's seal power could not hurt him at all. He had exhausted all his strength. Chapter 2506. That silly man just wanted to spend more time with her. The doppelganger was damaged. His body would also be damaged. All of his power was spent on the seal. Would his real body in the upper realm affect the things he handled in the upper realm? The more Yiqing Luo thought, the more her heart trembled. Qing Luo. Yan Xiaoyi saw Yiqing Luo not speaking for a long time, and her pair of eyes had already turned red as she called out softly with heartache. Yiqing Luo blinked her eyes as she pushed back the sour feeling in her nose. "I'm fine. If I were him, I would also do the same." That was right if it was her. In order to spend more time with Dmo Xian, she would make the same choice. She understood Dmo Xian's choice. It was just that her heart ached for him. Her heart ached and she missed him. "Let's leave this place first. This is the Miao tribe after all." Xiao Jin looked around. Perhaps it was because this was a forbidden place for the Miao tribe. Such a huge commotion had occurred. Not a single Miao tribesman came over. "I'm not leaving," Miao Yi said in a choked voice. She clenched her fists tightly, her bloodshot eyes burning with the flames of hatred. "I want to kill Miao Yixiong and avenge the people of Bu village." Yiqing Luo thought of those two old men. In order not to drag her down, they resolutely chose to leap into the seal. She took a deep breath and looked at Miao Yi calmly. "If you want revenge, you have to live." Miao Yi's body trembled and tensed up. "Let's go." After Yiqing Luo finished her words, she didn't wait for the others to react as she walked towards the exit of the Miao tribe. Yan Xiaoyi and the rest followed a few steps forward. He couldn't help but turn his head to look at Miao Yi, who was standing on the spot with her fists tightly clenched. He opened his mouth a few times, wanting to call out to Miao Yi, but looking at Yi Qingluo's departing back view without hesitation. In the end, he didn't say anything and turned around to chase after Yi Qingluo's footsteps. After walking for about the time it takes for half an incense stick to burn, the sound of hurried footsteps came from behind them. Very quickly, that man chased up to Yi Qingluo and opened up his arms, blocking her path. "Big Sister Luo, I beg you. Avenge the people of the Bu family village." Miao Yi's bloodshot eyes stared at Yi Qingluo without blinking. Sister Luo was right. If he wanted revenge, he had to stay alive. With her own strength, it was impossible for her to kill the Miao tribe leader. He would only be throwing his life away. She knew. The only person who could help her was Sister Luo. Yi Qingluo stopped in her tracks as her gaze fell firmly onto Miao Yi. Her gaze was like a torch, as if she could see through Miao Yi's soul. Miao Yi felt a little uneasy under his gaze. After a long time, he finally heard Yi Qingluo opening her mouth. "Even if you don't mention it, I will take revenge for the Bu family village." Miao Yi's outstretched arm stiffened. Then he slowly lowered his head. "No matter what, I still thank you. Don't you want to take revenge personally?" Yi Qingluo lowered her eyes and looked at the depressed girl. Miao Yi's eyes brightened, but soon dimmed again. I want to, but I can't. There's no such thing as whether I can or cannot, only whether I want to or not." Yi Qingluo interrupted Miao Yi's words. "As long as you want, I can let you take revenge personally and let the Miao Gu family be consigned to eternal damnation. But I have a request." Hearing Yi Qingluo's words, the light in Miao Yi's eyes grew brighter. She raised her head and her eyes were filled with determination. "As long as I can take revenge personally, I will agree to anything you say." Chapter 2507. The group returned to the Peach Blossom restaurant. Seeing so many old friends in the Heavenly Academy, Peach was naturally excited and arranged a good room for everyone. Yi Qingluo also found out from the few of them what happened in the Heavenly Academy after she left. Everything was as she had expected. The headmaster of the Heavenly Profound Academy was removed from his position. Furthermore, he was forcefully sent to the South Wave continent by the headquarters and imprisoned in the headquarters to suffer. Regarding this news, Yi Qingluo wasn't surprised. Before she left, she had specially set up a trap for the Heavenly Dean. What the Heavenly Dean cared about the most was his Dean position. The most severe punishment for Dean Xian wasn't to let him die. Instead, she wanted him to lose everything that he had worked so hard to obtain. She made use of the incident at Shangshuan Temple to let Yun Xiang and Si Yanmu collude to kill the Dean. She appeared to save Dean Xian and used him to leave Yun Xiang first. Before he left, he instructed Yan Xiaoyi to divulge the matter of the Heavenly Dean colluding with the dark forces. 1 or 2 elite students would go missing in the Heavenly Academy every month. The reason why the Heavenly Academy would force students to leave school for 3 days every month. The trip to the South Wave continent and the Blazing Nest were all part of the Dean's and the Dark Forces' plan to undo the King of Darkness seal. No matter how secretive the Heavenly Dean was in the past, there would still be some slip-ups. Coupled with some evidence which Yi Qingluo had intentionally forged. Truth and falsehood, the Heavenly Dean would definitely be destroyed. Then, has the headquarters mentioned who the newly appointed Heavenly Profound Principal is? Yi Qingluo asked with a smile after she heard everyone's words. Yan Xiaoyi's face was full of smiles as she blinked her eyes mysteriously. Guess. It's definitely someone you wouldn't expect. Yi Qingluo raised her eyebrows and confidently said, "It's Master Guiyu." Yan Xiaoyi's eyes widened as she covered her eyes and fell into Qiao Jin's embrace. "Can't you let me play mysterious for once? How did you know it was Dean Guiyu?" Yi Qingluo smiled. Ever since she set up a trap to destroy the Heavenly Dean, she had already predicted that the next president of the Heavenly Academy would be Old Man Guiyu. Yi Qingluo felt it. Old Man Guiyu had special feelings towards the Heavenly Academy. If it was Guiyu, the Heavenly Academy would continue to be at its peak, and sit firmly on the honor of being the best academy. Yes, the new dean is Dean Guiyu. Yan Shaoi looked at Yi Qingluo's unfathomable smile as she rubbed her head against Xiao Jin's shoulder with a bored look. The main courtyard has also agreed to let Dean Guiyu take on the role of Heavenly Dean, and the Dean certificate has also been handed over to Dean Guiyu. Xiao Jin stroked her head, his eyes filled with love. Following that, his gaze slowly shifted onto Yi Qingluo. I heard that Dean Guiyu and the previous dean were best friends. Did you know about this long ago? Otherwise, how could Yi Qingluo be so sure that old man Guiyu would take over the position of the former director? Yi Qingluo nodded. Ever since teacher Guiyu came to our devil class as a teacher, I already knew that there was a deep past between teacher Guiyu and the previous director. Yes, I heard that when Dean Guiyu wanted to be a teacher in the devil class, the previous dean refused to let go no matter what. In the end, it was Dean Guiyu who agreed to do something. Dean Guiyu almost lost his life, and the previous dean then allowed Dean Guiyu to be a teacher in the devil class. Chapter 2508. Yi Qingluo was slightly stunned. She knew that old man Guiyu was here to teach devil class. He must have made some sort of deal with the former dean. But he didn't expect. He had almost lost his life. Thinking of old man Guiyu's crazed face, her heart softened. Teacher Guiyu being the dean is the best outcome. Yi Qingluo's brows curved. After the matters in Northern Tide Continent are settled, we will return to the academy and celebrate with teacher Guiyu. Yan Shaoi grunted heavily. This time Slut Jean, Shadow and I came to the Northern Waves continent, firstly to see you, and secondly, to represent the Heavenly Academy to attend the birthday banquet of the Qinghua sect lord. Yi Qingluo roughly guessed the reason why they would appear here. Just hearing it from their own mouths, she was still a little surprised. After all, Yan Shaoi and the rest were merely students of the Heavenly Academy. In terms of qualifications and status, it was not the turn of the devil class students to be the representatives of the Heavenly Academy. With old man Guiyu's habit of protecting his children, it didn't matter if the devil class students were qualified or not. If old man Guiyu said so, no one would dare to object. Old man Guiyu must be worried that she would not be able to lead a stable life in the North Wave continent. He also knew that the students of the devil class all missed him. That was why he had to withstand the pressure from the entire academy to appoint Yan Shaoi and the rest as the representatives of the Heavenly Academy. Yan Shaoi noticed her gaze and replied, Master Guiwu and young Master Emo are here to participate in the Qinghua sect master's birthday banquet. Guiyu was worried that the three of us might encounter danger, so he asked Master Guiwu and young Master Emo to accompany us. Yi Qingluo raised her brows as her gaze turned into a teasing one. If I remember correctly, as a martial arts fanatic, ghost martial artist would never participate in any birthday banquets or grand ceremonies. Even if the sect master personally invited him, the ghost martial artist might not give him any face. This time, he traveled thousands of miles from the South Continent to the West Continent, and from the West Continent all the way to the North Continent. She looked at Zoemo with a teasing gaze. Guiwu had definitely followed Zoemo here. As for Zoemo, clearly they were here for Kitty Lee. In order to chase after his wife, Zoemo was really going all out. In order to support his brother, the ghost martial artist was quite strenuous. 3 days later, on the birthday of the Qinghua sect master, since last night, the city had been bustling with noise and excitement. The crackling of the firecrackers never stopped. There were also all kinds of festive bands roaming the streets and alleys. The city was decorated with lanterns and colored banners. Melodious music was being played, and the atmosphere was joyous. The commoners had filled up the streets and alleys of the Qinghua sect, and they were all talking about the deeds of the Qinghua sect master. Of course, this didn't mean that the Qinghua sect was a living bodhisattva in the eyes of the commoners. But because today, all the nobles and officials from different continents would gather in the Joy City, they naturally wanted to let the people of the other continents see the respect they had for the Qinghua sect. Every commoner had the heart to protect their own continent. They were all unwilling to let the people of other continents look down on their own continent. As a result, the citizens cheered even more fervently. Of course, there were also people from other continents who came to the Northern Wave continent to attend the birthday banquet. He had also put in a lot of effort to highlight the prosperity of his continent. On the streets, all kinds of luxurious carriages and top-grade horses galloped about. Chapter 2509. Although the street was crowded, people still lined up in an orderly manner. After all, everyone wanted to maintain their elegance and quality, so as not to be criticized. Giving way to each other was courteous and respectful. However, such a peaceful appearance. It was broken after the arrival of a group of people. There were about 30 people in that group of people. The guards were dressed in glittering golden clothes, and the weapons in their hands were so sharp that they could blind people's eyes. Surrounded in the middle by the guards was an extremely luxurious and noble carriage. Above the carriage, there was a white veil. In the haze, there was an enchanting figure. This group of people walked extremely proudly, with their heads held high and their chests puffed out, and their steps were powerful. If it was any other time, from the looks of it, this pair of people had a mighty aura that made people envious. But on this occasion, they were all high-ranking officials and dignitaries from various continents. Their attitude was simply a joke. This was especially true for this group of people. They were charging forward without any misgivings at all. They had a posture of, "I am opening this road, everyone get out of the way." Although the distinguished guests from other continents were unhappy, in order to maintain their demeanor, they naturally took the initiative to make way. But this behavior of maintaining demeanor, in the eyes of this group of people, everyone was afraid of their power. The common people already couldn't help but whisper to each other, "What kind of big shot is that? They look very arrogant." That's right. Why are so many distinguished guests making way for them? Some people guessed the identity of that group of people. Some people sneered disdainfully. "What big shot? I think they don't know what is polite at all." That's right, putting on an air of supremacy, they really think they are big shots. This extravagant and exaggerated posture, no matter how you look at it, it's just pretentious. Soon, someone recognized the flag at the forefront of that group of people. Look, that's the symbol of the East Continent's royal family. This group of people is the representative of the East Continent's royal family. So it was the royal family. No wonder they were so arrogant. But this was the North Continent. Moreover, many royal family representatives from other continents had also come. He had never seen any other royal family being so rude, had he? Furthermore, the representatives of the East Wave Continent's Jade Dome sect were still obediently lining up and entering the Joy Clan Palace in an orderly manner. What right did the royal family have to be so arrogant? However, today, the Qinghua city was bustling with activity. The voices of the commoners were drowned out by the music. Lan Lingnua, who was sitting in the carriage with a graceful posture, did not hear the criticism of the commoners outside. Through the white veil, she could see countless high officials and dignitaries making way for her. Some of the commoners were even talking about the East Wave imperial family. Lan Lingnua thought that it was because the power of the East Wave continent was overwhelming, and everyone was afraid of the Lan family. In his heart, he felt more and more pleased. Lan Lingnua had grown up in a situation where everyone doted on her, especially her beautiful face. Her life on the East Wave continent was smooth sailing. Even if he went to the West continent and entered the academy, she was also a fairy who was held in the palm of others' hands and respected. Because of this, Lan Lingnua didn't think that these people were being courteous to her because of courtesy, but because they were afraid of her identity as the East Wave's imperial family. Little did she know, among the many distinguished guests, you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.